America has elected Donald Trump as the 47th president. We are celebrating with 47% off a new annual Daily Wire membership when you use code TRUMP. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Join us with this exclusive offer. Kamala has finally conceded. And while many are praising her speech, I think it was downright scandalous. I think it was too little, too late from a cynical politician whose 15 minutes are up as President Trump prepares his return to the White House with a clear mandate to govern. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. There is a major update in the prosecution of Donald Trump, all the way to the top, all the way to the special prosecutor, Jack Smith. We will get to that major update in one moment. First, though, we must restore balance of nature. Balance of nature, fruits and veggies, is the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily. Balance of nature takes fruits and vegetables, freeze dries them, turns them into a powder, and then puts them into a capsule. Balance of nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle. Is not intended to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, or any other healthy habits. It is intended to be used in concert with other healthy habits. You know me, I'm on the road a fair bit. I'm actually going to the University of Iowa coming up, I think next week. And so when I'm on the road, you don't always get to eat all your fruits and veggies all the time. It's not the healthiest. So it's so great to be able to have a little capsule that can give you all those sorts of nice nutrients that you want. Right now, if you go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles, Knowles, for 35% off. As a preferred customer on your first order, you will get a free bottle of fiber and spice. Very, very simple. You get your little exercise in, you get your food in, but when you want to supplement these things, go to balanceofnature.com, promo code Knowles. Kamala conceded. And people are praising this speech. I don't really think this is a praiseworthy speech. First of all, she should have given the speech on election night. Everyone knew she lost on election night. In fact, the campaigns knew that she lost much earlier. Let's not forget, on election night, probably by about 10 p.m., 10 or 11 p.m., the Kamala campaign was no longer fielding questions from reporters, okay? They knew. They had internals, they had internal polling, which showed that things were not looking as good as they wanted them to. And then they just knew. They knew relatively early in the night. We all knew in the public by midnight or so Central Time. She should have come out there and told her supporters, hey, thanks for all your help, but it's not going to work out. She should have gone out there and told the American people, hey, I'll accept the results of this landslide election, landslide in the Electoral College, and even with a clear popular vote for Donald Trump. She didn't do that. She did the same thing Hillary did, which is delay. I don't know, hope that 5 million ballots would come in a trunk somewhere in Philadelphia. It didn't happen. And so finally, she was forced to concede at risk of looking completely absurd. And here is how she conceded.
People who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed, but please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. And don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before.
It's gonna be okay. Hold on. The premise of the Kamala campaign was the premise of the Biden campaign, which is that Trump is Hitler and he poses an existential threat to democracy. So it's okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you all for coming out here. Thank you for you feel sad. It's okay. But it's going to be okay that we elected Hitler. Hitler is A-okay as far as I'm concerned. So says Kamala Harris. Hitler's okay? Trump will destroy the fabric of our country. He will shred the Constitution. He poses an existential threat. We are all going to die, and that is okay. That doesn't sound okay to me. That sounds very scary. What? It's okay. Well, hold on. If it's okay, then I guess the premise was false. The only way it's okay is if Trump's not Hitler. The only way it's okay is if Trump does not pose an existential threat to our Constitution and our sacred democracy and our country. The only way it's okay is if she has been lying to us the whole time. And before her, Biden lying to us the whole time. That's the only way it's okay. So I agree with her. It'll be okay. It'll actually be much better now that Donald Trump is the president-elect. And it'll certainly be much better after January 20th when he re-enters office as the president. And one of the reasons it's going to be much better is for all the talk we hear about Trump's lies, all the many lies of Donald Trump, by which the liberal media mean there were 37,000 people at the rally instead of 36 or 38. The reason it'll be okay and it'll actually be much better when Trump is president is because he doesn't lie on the important things like this. He doesn't say that his opponents are Hitler. He doesn't say that men can be women. He doesn't say that babies aren't babies. He doesn't say that invasions are conducive to the flourishing of the country. He doesn't say that an open border is a closed border. He doesn't lie about the important things. All the way up to the premise of the Kamala campaign, which nearly got the guy killed twice. Because the premise of that campaign, that Trump poses an existential threat, that Trump is Hitler, is the justification to assassinate him. See you later, lady. I'm done with her. We don't, in fact, have to hand it to Kamala Harris. Up till the very last moment, this woman has behaved in a disgraceful way in this campaign, even up to trying to delay conceding. By the way, when she conceded, this will not surprise any of you who have been paying attention to this race. It's not even as though this concession speech were some great original work. You know, the reason she had to delay it 12 hours was because she had to write this magnificent Periclean concession speech. She basically copied it from Hillary Clinton.
The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for.
This is not the outcome we wanted or we worked so hard for.
Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition.
Last night, I congratulated Donald Trump and offered to work with him on behalf of our country.
Over the 107 days of this campaign, we have been intentional about building community and building coalitions, bringing people together from every walk of life and background.
We've spent a year and a half bringing together millions of people from every corner of our country to say with one voice that we believe that the American dream is big enough for everyone.
To the young people who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed, but please know it's going to be okay.
To the young people in particular, I hope you will hear this.
On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. This
loss hurts, but please never stop believing that fighting for what's right is worth it.
Okay, that video by way of the TikTok account, the recount, I saw it from Ryder Selmy on X. Totally generic stuff. Just like Kamala's whole campaign, which is one of multiple reasons that Kamala's campaign never caught on. What were people going to vote for? Were they going to vote for Kamala because they want to end fracking? Well, but she also said she didn't want to end fracking. Were they going to vote for Kamala because they want mass migration? Because she was the border czar and presided over an open border? Well, she also said she wanted to close the border and even suggested she wanted to build the wall. Were they going to vote for her because she's pro-Israel? Well, she also implied that she's pro-Gaza. Were they going to vote for her because what? She held every side of every issue. There was nothing to vote for. With Trump, love him or hate him, there's a lot to vote for. He tells you what he believes and he pursues it. There's one difference, though, between the Kamala concession and the Hillary concession. You could tell during the Hillary concession, part of what made it kind of delightful for those who have wanted Hillary to get out of politics for a long time is that you could tell she was in a murderous rage. And she really didn't want to be conceding. And she knew this was the end of her political career and it was driving her nuts. With Kamala, the one thing I'll give to her is she seemed relatively at ease giving this speech. And I think it's because easy come, easy go. I think the reason Kamala seemed relatively at ease, she wasn't sobbing or holding back fiery fury, was because she had no business being up there in the first place. And that's what the American people know, which is why Trump won in a landslide. This woman was obviously unfit to be president. She did not possess the requisite mental faculties, the requisite knowledge, the requisite preparation, the requisite anything, the requisite political formation, the requisite anything to be president. She was, as Joe Biden himself said, a DEI hire. He picked her because he was backed into a corner by charges of racism. He had to pick a black woman. The only options available to him were Karen Bass, who was a communist, Susan Rice, who was the fall man for Benghazi under Obama, and Kamala, who was unimpressive, but at least better than the other two when Joe Biden picked her. So he picks Kamala, and then they booted out Biden, and Kamala became the nominee without having had to win a single vote. And so easy come, easy go. All right, now Kamala's going to go off into the sunset. But I think conservatives, when Hillary's campaign ended, when her career ended, conservatives were so happy. We breathed a sigh of relief because this woman had been gunning for the White House for decades, and she had horrible ideas, and she was just terrible. And so we were so happy. With Kamala, a further indictment of her candidacy is conservatives don't even really care. When I walked into a cigar shop that I would frequent after Hillary lost, one of the workers at the shop came up to me and just started singing "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead." Okay, people were really, really happy when Hillary lost. And with Kamala, you just think, okay, another empty suit that is an avatar of the Borg, the blob, the liberal establishment. She goes down. I don't even really think about Kamala Harris. She doesn't even strike me as all that much of an individual, distinctive person. She's just, okay, the libs went down. That's what we're excited that Trump is in office, that Trump is going to make America great again, and that the generic liberal Borg has been set back at least for 4 years. Now, there was one little wink of providence here. This was an under-discussed aspect of the concession, but seemingly out of nowhere, as we were waiting for Kamala to concede. Do you see this? Just a little squirrel pops up. Wow. Look at that cute little squirrel. There's just a little squirrel running across the stage. Now, some are suggesting that this was AI or CGI. I don't know. Maybe it was real. This was outside of Howard University. Maybe it was. I don't know. Either way, was Peanut given a little ave atque vale to Kamala? I don't know. Was that a little wink of providence in the whole campaign? Could be. Why not? I choose to believe that it is. Not only did Kamala Harris sign off, Kamala's campaign signed off. And when I tell you that I don't think all that much about Kamala, and I don't have any ill will toward Kamala, certainly at a personal level, Kamala's campaign, specifically Kamala's X account, the Kamala HQ account, that maybe is a little bit of a different story because it was one of the most dishonest, vile, fraudulent campaigns I have ever seen in politics. We'll get to that in a moment. First, though, I want to talk to you about Pure Talk. Did you know that when you use Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you are supporting veterans across the country? As a veteran-led company, that's their passion project. That's why Pure Talk has alleviated $10 million in veteran debt. That's why they donate tens of thousands of dollars every month to help prevent veteran suicide. That is why they just donated $50,000 to MicroWorks, providing scholarships to veterans learning the trades after active duty. Now, that is a company you can get behind. Time to jump ship from Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. That is a better option. Pure Talk gives you the same great coverage, America's most dependable 5G network, for half the cost. You will also be helping our vets. Best part is when you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk on a qualifying plan, you'll get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. The only way you can get this special offer is by going to puretalk.com/Knowles or call and mention my name, puretalk.com/Knowles today. Switch over to a qualifying plan. Get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. That is puretalk.com/Knowles. The Kamala HQ signs off with this picture of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz looking goofy. From all of us at Kamala HQ, thank you for following along. So they actually posted this at 5:55 p.m. on November 5th. Now, you might read it as just a generic, okay, the campaign's over for now. But the campaign wouldn't really be over if she got elected because she could run for a second term. I think this was a little bit more maybe of a recognition that things aren't looking that good right now in the campaign. So see you later, and it was this big happy picture. The Kamala HQ account has posted all sorts of clips, specifically about me, about many other people in politics as well. And despite all the many lies they've told about me, there are outlets that post clips of mine where they try to get me canceled or they try to, I don't know, take something out of context or something. And I think, all right, that's politics. That's how it goes. The Kamala HQ has lied about me multiple times. Even while posting video of me, the Kamala campaign, the official Kamala campaign, has lied about things that I've said, just hoping that people won't watch the video or listen themselves. So they've lied about things that I've said. They have lied about positions that I've held. They've lied about groups that I'm affiliated with. They've actually just lied. Okay. And it's not just me. They've done it about a number of other conservatives as well. That's something that you ordinarily do not see from a presidential campaign, just the sheer mendacity, which is why it's really rich when the libs accuse Trump of lying. By the standards of the Democrats, President Trump is the most honest politician in America by a country mile. It's why it's so rich when the libs say that Donald Trump, and even some people on the right, some people say Trump doesn't have good character, but we'll vote for him anyway because of policy. No, actually, certainly by the standards of Democrats, Donald Trump has extraordinarily good character, is extraordinarily virtuous. Frankly, by the standards of many Republican politicians, the man has a lot of character. And also, just by the standards of politics, he exhibits certain virtues like courage, which is the prerequisite for all of the other virtues like prudence, a number of other virtues, more than really any politician in our lifetime. But it's why it's so rich. Whatever the Democrats accuse Trump of, they themselves are guilty of probably 10 times over. So all of that is preface to say, despite the many lies that the Kamala campaign has said about me, I want to thank them because I think the Kamala campaign did probably as much as anybody to send voters over to Donald Trump. I think they probably did about as much as Elon Musk or any of the other people who came onto the Trump campaign. Because of something Elon Musk said. Elon Musk said, hey, the Democrats, the Kamala campaign, they're lying to me. They lied. Bill Maher said, don't lie to me, Kamala campaign. When the Kamala campaign came out and said Donald Trump wants to put Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad, Bill Maher said, hey, look, I already don't like Donald Trump. You don't need to persuade me not to like Donald Trump, but stop lying to me. That's not what he said. We know that's not what he said. It's insulting to our intelligence. It's not just insulting to the people you're lying about. It's insulting to the people you're speaking to when you lie to them. And I think the Kamala campaign insulted people's intelligence. I think the whole premise of her candidacy was an insult to voters' intelligence, specifically to Democrats' intelligence. You're going to run a campaign saying this is the democracy's on the ballot. Trump's a threat to democracy and we're going to save it. And that's why we're going to ignore all of your votes in the primaries. We're going to install this woman whom none of you really like. And we're going to pretend that we're the great defenders of democratic norms. Give me a break. Voters do not like being lied to. And that is enough to push people from the center or even the center left over to the right, to the tune of millions of votes in this campaign. Now, there's one race that still has not been called, and it's really, really tight. And I'm hoping that the Republican pulls it out. in no small part because I sat down with this Republican for a wonderful hour-plus interview. Maybe it was closer to 2 hours. That would be American hero and Senate candidate Sam Brown.
If you don't mind going back in time, what happened?
We were providing security for a convoy that was delivering turbines to a dam to help power southern Afghanistan. There's not a warning when your life is about to go up in flames. I had 3 sensations. My truck got blown in the air, and so I felt this sinking feeling into my seat. The blast overpressure made everything go silent. And in a moment, I suddenly realized who I was. I threw my arms in the air in a moment of desperation that was true conviction that I needed God. And I screamed, Jesus, save me. And I had these 3 final thoughts. How long is it going to take to burn to death? What's the transition from this life to the next going to be like? And I made the decision to give up the will to live. The miracle then came.
So we've been waiting on the results of this campaign. As of this morning, I think the vote was, we were at 69% counted or something like that. It was far from over, and Sam was slightly leading. I'm now hearing that Sam is down, that the race might even be called, that Sam has lost. Do we have, I'm just calling to the control room now, do we have any final numbers? All right, the producers are searching for final numbers. To what? 47.7 to what? 47.7 to 46.7. So you're talking about a 1-point race that obviously these numbers move a lot because they could be a tenth of a point away, but then a big batch of votes comes in. Well, it's unfortunate. We'll see how many organizations have called the race now. If it really is over, all the more reason to listen to Sam's story. This guy has an incredible personal story, an incredible political journey, an incredibly tight race in a year where Trump's, won in an electoral landslide, won the popular vote, won those swing states, won the Rust Belt in a total sweep, and yet many of the Senate races, many of the down ballot races were a lot closer and ultimately ended up going to the Democrats. We will get to some more of those races later. Real sorry to hear that Sam is down, though, and possibly has officially lost that race. If so, the guy should run again. The guy has an incredible story, and in the meantime, you should listen to that interview. Okay, back to the presidential. How did the Kamala campaign do? There are going to be all sorts of recriminations. We're already hearing a lot of them. This is the fault of black men. It's kind of rich to hear Democrats who constantly accuse Republicans of being racist and scapegoating people. The minute that black men even slightly break from the Democrat Party, you're hearing all sorts of invective against black men, against Hispanics. Again, they're hitting white women too, as they often do, but they're really going out. They say, "How dare you, black men and Hispanics? We own you. You're supposed to vote for us. How dare you?" They just sound like they're, I don't know, Klansmen or something like that. They're totally reverting. The facade is gone. There is no more kumbaya, no more politically correct speech. But once you get past this demographic group or that demographic group, the excuse that the Kamala campaign is settling on, it seems, is that she just didn't have enough time.
Our panel, and let's just run down, starting with you, Audie. What are you looking for? Obviously, there's so much, but just give me one.
I would say that 2020 was a historic turnout. I mean, the highest since the 1900s. So if it doesn't match that, who stayed home and why? And I think so many of our questions will come to that. Which group stayed home and why?
Donald Trump has been running for 2 years. Kamala Harris has been running for 107 days. So one of my big questions is, particularly with her candidacy, is whether that was just enough time to introduce herself to the country and to candidates who were dead set on voting for a Democrat, weren't so sure about him, or whether she could have used a little bit more time.
If only she had more time. This is the Don Corleone excuse. He's lamenting to his son, Michael. If only there was more time. If only we had more time. Did she need more time? Kamala Harris ran for Attorney General of California in 2011, and she was successful, albeit in a close race. Then she assumed office in 2011. She assumed office as U.S. Senator from California in 2017. She assumed office as the Vice President of the United States 2021, 3 years ago. What more introduction do you need? She's been the sitting vice president for 3.5 years. She ran for president before she was the sitting vice president. She introduced herself to voters then, and voters rejected her. They rejected her before they rejected pretty much any other Democrat. Right off the bat, they said, "We don't like you, lady." And she continued to introduce herself. And then the other question is, who would the campaign have introduced? Would they have introduced tough prosecutor Kamala, or would they have introduced bail the rioters out of jail Kamala? Would they have introduced open borders Kamala or build the wall Kamala? Which Kamala would they? The issue is not time. The issue is not time. In fact, the opposite is true. The more time Kamala had to introduce herself, the worse her poll numbers looked. When Kamala announced, that was pretty much the height of her campaign. Then she avoided reporters as much as she could, and then finally she sits down with reporters, and every time she'd sit down with a reporter, her numbers would go down. That isn't it. It can't be time. It can't be happenstance. It can't be, Joe Biden waited too long. Joe Biden, on election day, was more popular than Kamala Harris. I'm not saying Joe Biden would have won, but he probably would have done better than Kamala Harris. It can't be that. Kamala lost because she was a bad candidate. She refused to have an identity. She refused to stand for anything, and that repelled a lot of voters. The things that she was understood to stand for were unpopular. And voters, you can't blame one demographic group or some other demographic group. You can't, they all, to some degree, came out to vote for Trump. Black women was still pretty much held the line for the Democrats. So you'll hear Democrats exalting black women, but a black woman also lost the race. So, and she was rejected by every other sort of group. Now, why was that? Was it because of misogyny? Was it because of racism? We'll get to those questions in a moment. First, though, some practical matters here. Donald Trump's legal problems have just ended. They ended immediately. Jack Smith, the special prosecutor who Biden sicked on Trump to try to throw his chief political rival into prison, he has just dropped his case. You remember, Jack Smith was pursuing two cases. There was the classified documents case that Donald Trump had some documents in Florida. And now Joe Biden, of course, had classified documents that he had even less of a right to have, splayed out in multiple properties, in his garage next to his Corvette, available to his crackhead son who was selling secrets to the Chinese, allegedly. Trying to sell secrets to the Chinese, allegedly, and peddling American influence elsewhere in the world, including Ukraine. That didn't matter. No prosecution of Biden, but Donald Trump kept a souvenir keychain from the White House, so you got to throw him in prison for 500 years. That case was already thrown out by the judge in the case, Eileen Cannon. But there was another case. There was the federal case being pursued by the DOJ and by Jack Smith that Donald Trump tried to overturn the 2020 election. That case is done. Deader than disco. It's over. Now, in principle, Jack Smith could have kept this case going until Trump took office. Trump had already promised. He said, "I'm firing Jack Smith day one." I believe his phrase was, "Within 2 seconds of taking office, I'm firing Jack Smith," as he well should. But Jack Smith could continue the case up until January 20th. He's not. It's over. And this reminds us of something. Jeremy mentioned it on Backstage yesterday. But one of our friends here, Siaka, Black Jeremy, in the commercials, he was at the election party, and when the results came in, he said, "Wow, I'm not going to prison." Because Siaka was at the Capitol on January 6th, and he wasn't, committing violence or anything like that. He was just at the Capitol, exercising his constitutional rights to protest in the People's House, and he was later on raided, later on even than that, arrested. It was an obvious political prosecution, and he said, "Wow, Trump just won, and now I'm not going to prison unjustly." Elections have real consequences, real tangible consequences for real people. In this case, the Democrats were trying to imprison their chief political rival, and they were trying to do it for years. And they came pretty close to doing it. And then the American people said, no, we don't want that. Poll after poll showed that the vast majority of the American people believed that the prosecutions of Donald Trump were politically motivated. This wasn't a matter of Lady Justice being blind. This was a matter of thug Democrats shredding the Constitution to wield the state to imprison their political enemies, like happens in tin pot dictatorships and banana republics. It was a national disgrace. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the entire Democrat apparatus should go down in infamy for their actions. And now that's over. There is a real irony. We're talking about winks of providence, a little squirrel at Kamala's speech. Little winks of providence. Democrats have been telling us democracy is on the ballot. Our Constitution's on the ballot for this whole election. And that might have ended up being true. Because Trump wins, and all of a sudden the political persecutions, they just disappear. Had Trump lost, good people would have gone to prison for disagreeing with Kamala and Joe Biden. Good people would have, the president of the United States, former president, chief political rival to the Dems, very possibly would have gone to prison. Very likely, perhaps, would have gone to prison. That would have represented far nearer an existential threat to our democracy than anything Donald Trump has ever said or done. Now, the question is, are we going to get pardons? And I sure hope we will. I hope for the majority of January 6thers who did very little, if anything, wrong on January 6th and who have sat in federal prison and who have had their records destroyed. I hope those people receive full pardons. For the pro-lifers who have been unjustly imprisoned by Democrats for violations of the FACE Act, this Bill Clinton era law that was dishonest from the start. It said that it was going to protect access to abortion mills, but also to pregnancy centers and houses of worship. That's how they sold it. You know, it was going to protect everybody. And it is not used to protect pro-life pregnancy centers. It's not used to protect churches. Churches can be vandalized. Pro-life pregnancy centers can be burned down. Forget about the FACE Act. The FACE Act is used to imprison Christian grandmothers who peacefully demonstrate at baby killing sites. And there are people, it shouldn't be totally a matter of age or sex, but I think it really drives the point home. There are 75-year-old grandmas who are sitting in federal prison right now because they peacefully demonstrated and objected and prayed about babies who are being slaughtered by Democrats. As they said, please don't kill the babies. And peaceful, they're not throwing fists. They're just at abortion clinics saying, please don't kill the babies. They go to federal prison for that. It would be wonderful if President Trump would issue full pardons to all of those people. All of the peaceful pro-lifers who just say no thanks. And then furthermore, I know I'm very happy to say there are lawmakers who listen to this show. There are people in political power who listen to this show at the state, and in this case, the federal level. The FACE Act has to go. The FACE Act is a disgusting law. It is a grave injustice. It does not do what it said it would do. It was sold on a lie, and it is used exclusively to persecute some of the best people in our country, peaceful Christians who just pray that we stop killing babies. It has been successfully wielded against those people. It's got to go. And I really hope, assuming we have a Republican House and a Republican Senate, we know we have the Republican White House, it would be a wonderful thing if we finally repealed that grave injustice of the FACE Act and pardoned everyone who's been unjustly prosecuted under it. Now, we heard a little bit of the news about Sam Brown in Nevada just moments ago. We're still waiting to see what the House is going to look like because a lot of the seats that were crucial were in New York and California. And we know the more liberal a state is, the less likely it is to conduct its elections in an efficient and transparent way. So we're still waiting on the results from the House. What about those Senate seats? We'll get to that in a moment. First, though, America elected President Trump. He's the 47th president. We're celebrating with 47% off new annual DW Plus memberships with code Trump. Get unfiltered ad-free daily shows from the most trusted voices in conservative media, if I do say so myself. Enjoy our full catalog of entertainment, including the #1 documentary of 2024, Am I Racist? Plus breaking news, live coverage from where the story is unfolding. There's never been a better time to join us. Use code TRUMP for 47% off at dailywire.com/subscribe. My favorite comment yesterday is from Sandy K067, who says, I'm a woman who voted for Trump because I don't want my young nieces to share a shower at school with the guys, and I don't want any of them growing up to be ashamed of the color of their skin. Many such cases. You're going to hear that the election of Trump, it's just a war on women, and it's because of the patriarchy and the white men and however. A lot of women voted for Trump. A lot of women voted for Trump. A lot of non-white people voted for Trump. And that issue which the geniuses of our political establishment mock. They say, oh, who cares about this social issue of trans identity? That was a big issue for a lot of people, and a lot of people in the center and on the center left. And it gets down to what Bill Maher said and Elon Musk said. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me and say that a man is a woman. Don't lie to me and say that a husky Hank stripping down in my little girl's locker room at the public pool is okay. Don't lie to me. It's very disrespectful. And the voters expressed their offense at that disrespect at the ballot box. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses, as I alluded to earlier. In those swing states, some of the Senate elections not going all that well. Alyssa Slotkin, the Democrat in Michigan, has defeated Republican Mike Rogers. That is unfortunate, but CNN projected that last night. This is really unfortunate. What does this tell us? It tells us something that I mentioned on the Backstage show yesterday. I may have mentioned it on my show. It's all kind of blurring because we've just been on air more or less all the time for about 72 hours now. It means that Trump did better than the down ballot races. It means that there were people in Michigan who came out to vote for Trump and then either didn't vote down the ballot or voted for Democrats down the ballot. They came out, they love Trump. They don't necessarily love the Republican Party. They don't necessarily care about the other candidates, which means that for the Republicans who have said for years, oh, you know, Trump, he's an imperfect vessel, as if they're not imperfect, as if they're just so perfect to these guys. They say, this Trump, he's imperfect. This Trump, his policies are basically okay. We can tolerate it. There would be so many better Republicans. If only we picked another Republican in the 2016 primary. If only we picked another Republican in the 2024 primary. Oh, I guess we'll tolerate this Trump. He's just a weak candidate relative to the field. And, this Trump. When you look at what happened in the swing states and the Senate races and down ballot, what we conclude is Trump is actually a better candidate than most of those other Republicans. Trump is not only, this guy that we tolerate, okay, he squeaked across the finish line. Trump has done better than other Republicans. He is a positively good candidate. If it were possible to have more candidates like him, that would probably be a good idea, especially now that the Republican coalition has changed because of and under Donald Trump. Changed in a positive way that allowed Republicans to win even the popular vote for the first time in 20 years. It's too bad. I really like Mike Rogers. I was really hoping he'd pull it out in Michigan. But there are people who came out, they just wanted to vote for Trump. They didn't care about the other Republicans. Maybe they preferred Democrats even to other Republicans. That means that the other Republicans need to learn from Trump. And I don't want to hear any more of these self-appointed geniuses say, oh, actually, you know what Trump really should do? Trump really should just behave more like the generic establishment Republicans. No, Trump does better than they do. If only Trump ran like X primary candidate or Y primary candidate or Mitt Romney or John McCain. No, Trump did better than those guys. All those other guys should be emulating him, as many of them are. Another bit of bad news. Tammy Baldwin has beated. You can tell I've slept so well in the last few days. I can't, how can you sleep when you're so full of joy and covfefe? Tammy Baldwin has beat out Eric Hovde. This is in the Wisconsin race. I was really hopeful about the Wisconsin race. CNN also projected last night that the Democrat was going to win there. This is unfortunate because we started to get really bullish. We wanted to take back the Senate, and that was basically baked in already because West Virginia was going to flip with Democrat Joe Manchin's retirement. A Republican was more or less guaranteed to win that. So, okay, that flips power. Chuck Schumer is no longer the Senate Majority Leader, especially now you've got a Republican in the White House. So the vice president's going to be the tie-breaking vote. If it comes down to a tie-breaking vote, things are looking good in the Senate, but we want to build on that. We don't want a slim majority. We don't want it to be 50-50 with a tie-breaking vote or 51-49. We want 52, 53, 54. By the end of election night, we were hearing we might have 55 seats for the Republicans in the Senate. That's not going to happen anymore. So when I checked the race, the Nevada race, it was more or less tied. And Sam Brown was actually a little bit ahead with 47.3%. That's obviously changed, and now they've called the race. That's too bad. Arizona, 68% of the vote in. Kari Lake versus Ruben Gallego. Kari Lake has struggled in that race. Gallego 50.2% to Kari Lake's 47.8%. That is a bigger margin. That's going to be tougher to make up. Now, again, 68% reporting. We'll see what happens. It would be good if we got another Republican senator in there, but not looking great. Pennsylvania, hey, control room, while I've been on air, have they called Pennsylvania yet? They're checking. Okay, last I checked, you had 98% of the vote in. So you had basically all the ballots in, and the race was 48.9 to 48.5. 0.4 of a percentage point separated this race, and the Republican Dave McCormick was in the lead over Democrat Bob Casey. This was really good news because the last time we had a Senate race in Pennsylvania, in the Republican primary, you had Dave McCormick, who is a little more of a business Republican. He's not the most rock-ribbed far-right Republican there is. However, it's Pennsylvania, so it's tough to run a really tried-and-true right-winger. And I thought McCormick was a more compelling candidate than, say, Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz went down in flames, unfortunately, in that race. McCormick seems to be doing pretty well for now, but this is a nail-biter.
They have not called the race yet.
They still have not called it. Okay, so who knows what we are over 98% now of ballots in. This is going to take a while. We're going to be waiting on these results, I suspect, for a long time. How about the House majority? House majority remains too close to call. So we'll see. I'm still confident the Republicans are going to have the majority. It would be good for the Trump administration to have the House, because then you could make the laws. You'd have unified government. You'd have the House, you'd have the Senate, you'd have the White House, you'd have the Supreme Court in a relatively reliable way. Wow, that is great. Regardless, though, of how the House goes, Trump clearly has a mandate to govern. And this is different. In 2016, Trump did not clearly have a mandate to govern. In 2016, it was a real messy, tough race, and he won, and it was awesome. But the Democrats could still say that he lost the popular vote. Democrats could still drag up all this nonsense, the Russia hoax that they cooked up between the FBI and the Democrats. They could still drag up all of these controversies and scandals. Here, though, there's nothing else for them to dig up or to contrive or to invent. Every scandal that they could possibly try to throw on Trump, they've already done it. They've thrown everything at him. Prosecutions, the justification for assassination, none of it worked. Trump won by even more this time. And he won among a greater variety of voters, and he even won the popular vote. This man has a mandate to govern, which makes me think this will be better than the first term, and it very likely will be better. Okay, before we go, who else do we blame? We got to get a little bit of the tears from the libs. Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe. He's throwing shade at the black men, at the Hispanic men. He says the black and Hispanic men, they hate women, and the Hispanics generally hate black people.
It must be the maturing of America.
Well, I just say, Rev, really quickly, too. Democrats need to be mature, and they need to be honest. And they need to say, yes, there's misogyny. But it's not just misogyny from white men. Mm-hmm. It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from black men. Things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a black woman as president of the United States. You know, the Democratic Party, I've always found, when you're sitting around talking, they love to just sort of balkanize everybody into these separate groups and say, oh, white people don't like women and black people. No, it is time for the Democrats to say, okay, and you and I have talked about this before, a lot of Hispanic voters have problems with black candidates.
There it is. All right. No more of this only going after the white guy. That's implausible now. So here comes Morning Joe. Gloves are off. How dare you, black men? How dare you, Hispanics? You're supposed to be on my team. Do what I say. It's because they're misogynistic. Okay. If the Trump victory is attributable to misogyny, how do you explain that Trump did better among women this time than he did last time? Women did not support Kamala Harris. Hillary Clinton won women by 13 points in 2016. Joe Biden won women, it appears, by 15 points in 2020. Harris got women by just 10 points. Women were less likely to support Harris than the other guys. Young women actually came out for Trump in greater numbers than they did in 2020. How do you explain that? If it's about anti-black racism or something, how do you explain the fact that Trump got significantly greater chunk of the black vote, specifically black men this time around, as even Morning Joe is admitting here? What does this tell you? It tells you the left is more willing to change the target of their smears rather than the substance of their smears. That's a really important takeaway. Lock that one away, because that's going to remain true for a long time. All the Democrats have is, you're a racist, you're a misogynist, you hate this group, you hate that group. That's all they've got. They don't have anything else. They previously have just wielded that against white people. They're no longer just wielding it against white people. That's implausible after this race. So they say, actually, you black people, you hate black people. I don't know. You Hispanic people. Hey, you women, you hate women. That's it. All they got is the racism and misogyny, so they can't change the subject. They can't change the substance. They've only got to change the target. Okay, there's so much more that's happened, but we have to pause it here for the proper Michael Knowles show. We are now going to continue our live coverage because everyone's just so excited and we're all just giddy and dancing. So we're gonna remain live for everyone on YouTube, on the social media platforms, on X, until Mr. Shapiro comes on. I'm going to be taking some of your questions on this iPad. However, I'm not taking them from the hoi polloi. I love all of you out there who are watching in YouTube land and X. However, if you want to ask questions, if you want to get your comments read, you have to join Daily Wire Plus. We also have Phil Labonte coming up. That's right. We have one of the great stars of the Tim Pool universe coming up. First, though, a little bit from the iPad. Woohoo, Michael, says Mr. Mark Rama. Woohoo! What's up, DW Chrissy? iPad time. Would Kamala have gone after the homeschooling family, says TradY4547? For sure. Yeah, are you kidding me? The Biden-Harris administration was spying on Catholic churches, parishes that they viewed as too traditionalist, and equating them with terrorists and domestic extremists. They were peddling all sorts of craziness through their educational regulations, forcing transgenderism into schools. They hate school choice. They're totally in the pocket of the teachers' unions. Yeah, for sure. Especially now that homeschooling is exploding. Hey, Michael, says Victorian Lady Esquire. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Victorian Lady Esquire? Creamy Bucket. Sexy Mike, are you excited that literal Hitler is president again? What a question. What a way to put it. That's Kamala. Hey, everyone. We're all a little bit dejected that Hitler got elected president, but it's going to be okay. It's okay that literally Hitler is going to be governing us. It's okay. All right. Just keep fighting. That was more of a Tucker laugh than a Kamala laugh. I'll work on my Kamala laugh. What a special week, says Catherine. Ha, I am special, says Alien. Mr. L. Trell, until the end of time. A lot of people just saying good morning. Michael, what was for breakfast, says Napicard. Okay, finally people are asking the important questions. Sweet little Elisa, my beautiful saintly wife, made me a lovely cheese omelet with some nice prosciutto with a little crisp on it, and then a homemade waffle, a couple homemade waffles with a little drizzle of syrup. Not too much, we got to fit into my smoking jacket, and a nice shot of espresso. It was delicious. Delicious. Multiple people asking me about my breakfast. Wow. A lot of people talking about Hitler. Chicken soup. Michael, I saw a friend yesterday. He said, I look happy. I've never been told I look happy. And he said he could tell. I'm just so freaking happy. I had a friend of mine tell me, I had dinner with some friends last night, and they said that they think their neighbors now know their political views because they were out walking in the morning and they said, oh, hey, good morning. How's it going? And the neighbor said, how's it? And I think that probably gave it away. If you had a little bit too much of a smile on your face yesterday, a little too much pep in your step, people know the secret is out. Watch out. Though the libs seem so dispirited at this point, I don't even know that they're going to burn the cities down as they often do. Okay, I want to get to Phil Labonte. That's right. One of the stars of Timcast IRL, an actual singer and musician. Some of us in podcasting, we'll pull out a ukulele every now and again or something, kind of play around on the mandolin. But Phil is actually a musician. He is lead singer of the metalcore band All That Remains and a famous figure from Timcast IRL. Phil, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, hello, Michael. Don't sell yourself short. I've heard you play. Don't sell yourself short. You are an absolutely phenomenal musician.
Well, that's very kind of you. Do you think there's going to be any room for my soprano ukulele in any metalcore songs?
I tell you what, we can make music is a universal language, and I'm sure that we could find a place for you.
That sounds right. I consider myself the Yngwie Malmsteen of the ukulele, so I can't wait to try to do all sorts of tapping and things. Yeah,
you're in better shape. You're much more svelte than Yngwie.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, what's your take? I mean, truly, you come from music, you come from areas that are not full of political nerds and necessarily rock-ribbed right-wing Republicans. What's the vibe, man? It was a vibe election. What's the vibe 48 hours after the election?
I mean, personally, I'm excited. Yesterday, like you were mentioning, you're hearing about your neighbors or your friends that were talking about their neighbors, walking around looking dejected, and they were walking around with a spring in their step. And I couldn't help but walk around with that same spring in my step. It has been my belief that the Harris administration would be just like the Biden administration and use the DOJ against their political opponents. Like, I think that I was pretty confident that there would be significant efforts to stifle speech, to continue to go after people like Tim Pool or like the Daily Wire, like Ben, to try to quash dissent. And I feel like there has been a significant cloud lifted because that doesn't, that's not in the cards anymore. And so personally, I'm thankful for my friends because they're not going to be fearing, or that they don't have to fear the full weight of the federal government anymore, but also for the American people because the freedom of speech is important. And that was the fundamental fear that I had, was that there was going to be, the DOJ coming down on normal people for having political speech that was unpopular.
That was a big issue for a lot of people. That was a big issue for Elon, Tulsi, Bobby Kennedy. And it wasn't, look, I hate that the government was going to try to throw us all into the gulags for what we say, but it wasn't even the top issue for me. I mean, I felt they were going to unjustly target a lot of us. But I think that really resonated for a lot of voters, this censorship. Maybe in the same way that the transgender bathroom issue and transgenderism in schools resonated for a lot of people. It's not that it was necessarily directly going to affect them all that frequently, but it was so offensive to them. It just really cut to the core, to tell people to lie. I guess that's what unites those two issues. It was the government saying, hey, you better lie. You better shut up and not tell the truth at least. And I think that really did offend quite a lot of people. And I'm with you also. I felt a kind of relief. Even more, I remember in 2016, I felt surprise. I voted for Trump, but it was hard to imagine he was really going to win. Yeah, and then absolutely. I felt surprise. I felt elation. I felt joy. I felt excitement. I felt all those things. I felt a great deal of humor. But this time around, I think the primary thing I felt was relief. I tweeted it out, and I really endeavor never to take the Lord's name in vain, but I don't think I was taking the Lord's name in vain here. I just tweeted out, I said, thank God that this man was elected president. So much will get better instantly because this man was elected president. I don't mean he's going to fix the economy, though I think he'll do that. I don't mean he's going to stop the invasion, though I think he'll do that. I mean, well, just to use the example of Jack Smith, the weaponization of the government against chief political rivals, that ended immediately. Thank God. We faced very, very serious threats. And so I felt excitement and all the rest, but I just felt a sense of relief.
Absolutely. And to your point, I agree. I felt the same sense of relief, but I think at least a part of my relief came from the reassurance by the fact that there was such a decisive victory. It reassured me that America still does care about the things that make America, America. Things like the freedom of speech. I do agree that there was probably parents that were terrified for their daughters. You know, the idea of a man going into the bathroom with their daughter and you know, something terrible happening. Obviously terrified parents, and rightly, they should fear that. Especially when it's state sanctioned. You know, if you're a parent and your daughter goes into the bathroom and something happens, and then the state says, well, you have to deal with it. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to, you don't have the law to protect you, and we're not going to be able to, you know, address your grievances. I think that scared parents. But more than that, I think that for me, because probably because I'm not a father right now, but for me, it was the reassurance that my countrymen still believe in my country, right? Like the fundamental principles that make America what it is, for the past 15 or so years, 20 years, a lot of people have treated them as if they're passé, as if they're not important. And you hear it, like just yesterday on The View, there was someone talking about how, you know, the reason Trump won was because they weren't regulating the social media networks. And, you know, they were talking about X and Elon Musk. And that is just so abhorrent to me. The idea that not only is something as fundamental as the freedom of speech being attacked, but it's being attacked by your fellow citizens. They're saying we would want to use the power of government to shut up people that disagree with us. And so for me, the relief, I agree, it was definitely a sense of relief. I'm right on the same page with you. But for me, it was a sense of relief that thankfully we won in a decisive manner. And that was a ringing endorsement of America. It was a ringing endorsement of the country that I so deeply love.
Yeah, I guess on that very point, the fact that the demographic numbers were so shocking is also a good bit of relief that, okay, our fellow Americans aren't totally nuts, that there's actually hope for the American people. Because, you know, when you look at 45% of Hispanics in some places voting for Trump, then you think, okay, Hispanics can assimilate. Oh, that's actually good. We've been told from the left and parts of the right, Hispanic people cannot assimilate, or certain Hispanic groups at least cannot assimilate. I thought, oh, okay, 45%, that's pretty good. If a group can assimilate to even 50-50, it's like the Italians. You know, you get Nancy Pelosi on one hand, Antonin Scalia on another hand. You can't tell by looking at an Italian guy what his politics are. That's assimilation. Okay, Hispanics can do it. Same thing with the black vote. The fact that maybe 20% of black men voted for Trump means, great, black voters are not totally allergic to the Republican Party in all cases. Maybe to some Republican politicians, but great. It's not just a total lock. The fact that women moved more toward Trump. Oh, great. Women haven't just been totally hypnotized by Democrats. They aren't just totally enthralled to Democrats' offers to let them murder babies. You know, if that were the case, that would be damning stuff about, well, almost any demographic group you could name. But that's not what happened. The realignment shows us that actually the demographics are kind of dynamic, that they can be persuaded, that arguments actually still work in our republic. Okay, maybe there's a future for self-government.
Yes, I completely agree. It was an unmitigated disaster for the narrative spun by the left. The narrative that America is inherently bad and that America inherently hates different groups of people based strictly on their race or on the color of their skin. There was a total rebuke of those ideas, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. because it's what I believed since I was a child. I'm a Gen X guy. And so we were raised to believe that the color of your skin isn't important, that people are people. And if you make a good argument, you can convince people regardless of the color of their skin or where they grew up or how they were raised, that an argument is something, the argument is the important thing. And for a long time, the left has been making a counter argument, something that I was shocked when I realized what they were doing, but they were making the argument that, if you have this skin color, then you must think this. And it was something that wasn't just a subtle thing. It was something overt. When Joe Biden says, if you don't vote for me, then you're not black. I mean, I was horrified. I'm like, what is this guy thinking? Like, the key thing about Hispanic people and black people and women people is they're people, not the color of their skin. They're people. They're human beings just like me and you. And they may have inclinations, and they are going to come from a different, upbringing or have a different experience in life, but that doesn't make them less people. They're just people, and people can be reasoned with. You can talk to people, and we can find common ground with people. And I think that that's one of the things that I love the most about our country is it is a nation of people that come together because they agree. I'm fine with excluding people that disagree. If you don't love America, stay out. I love America, but if you don't believe in the founding principles, then don't come to America. We can boot out all the communists you want to boot out. I'm right there with you. But when it comes to people that, love the ideals that our country's founded on, then I think we should welcome them with open arms, and I think that these arguments make themselves when they're approached with honesty and with charity.
There are so many points you're making about human nature here that I think really have resonated with people, that the left has made an enemy of human nature. The left has made an enemy of reality. And people know that. What distinguishes humans in their nature from other animals is that we have reason. So we have will and intellect. That's why we can be put on trial for stealing a candy bar. A squirrel cannot be put on trial for stealing a candy bar. The state will just come in and take the squirrel and execute the squirrel, of course, naturally, especially in New York. But that's why. That's what distinguishes us, right? So we have reason. Yes. So as you say, we are persuadable. We can make arguments. Now, there are distinctions within humanity. There really are racial differences. That isn't, it's not evil to say that. It's not false to say that. There are distinctions between races, and there are distinctions between the sexes. Men and women really are different. But I think on this point, especially when we're talking about identity politics, this is the distinction between race and sex is really important too, because whatever differences there are between the races, black people run faster than white people or whatever, those are real. But sexual differences are much deeper than racial differences. Racial differences get a lot blurrier than the sexual differences. And I think that this is all a long way of saying, I think this is why the transgender issue has in itself resonated so much, and as a symbol of a political program has resonated so much, is that we know in our core, men and women, we possess reason. Sometimes we think the other one does not possess reason at all, and sometimes there are good reasons to believe that. But men and women really do both possess reason. But we are different. That distinction between the sexes is the fundamental distinction within human nature. And so, if a political party comes up to me and says, "Yeah, actually, no, that isn't true. The most basic division in human nature, it's not real." I'm going to know. I don't care if I've been a lifelong Democrat. I don't care if I live in New York City. I'm going to know they're lying to me, okay? And when people lie to me, I'm less inclined to vote for them.
Yeah. The idea that men can become women or women could become men, that's just stupid. And it's something that I completely agree. The people that I interact with in like LA, like last year, I spent a lot of time in Los Angeles because we were recording a record. And I'm spending a lot of time with people that are very, very progressive, have very progressive ideas. And, when it's just you and your producer in the studio, or you and an engineer in the studio, or you and someone else that typically has very progressive ideas, but they're like, yo, this stuff that they're talking about with men, that is some BS, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing. And, you know, they don't want to say it publicly, and I don't blame them because the reality that they live in or the circumstances that they work in every day makes it dangerous for them to say those kind of things. And, you know, everyone's got a family and bills to pay and stuff. So I understand it. But at the same time, nobody believes that except for the most ideologically possessed. And it's people where the trans ideology and stuff, it is not just about politics. It's about a religion for them. It's their religion. And I don't think that there's a whole lot of argument against that fits. I mean, when such a basic thing, you know, men and women are different and men cannot become women and women cannot become men. When those things are pushed back against, the proper response is from normal thinking people, from right thinking people, the proper response is, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like there's not.
No, I think that issue might have secured Ted Cruz his Senate seat, which seems crazy, but that was the biggest ad of that race down there in Texas, was an ad of Colin Allred, who was a former football player, tackling a little girl, and it said Colin Allred, and it was a totally fair ad. It said Colin Allred has voted to put men into girls' sports. And it really worked, not because it's not at the top of my list. Economics, inflation, immigration, you know, that's what's at the top of most people's priority issues list. But it's just a good rule of thumb. When I think about, if I were hanging out in the recording studio, I got my little ukulele there, and I'm talking to some of your more liberal friends. If they brought up, I don't know, democracy. The Democrats made a big deal about democracy this cycle. Michael, what do you think about democracy? I probably would have given it some answer, like the framers of the Constitution, or maybe some quote from the Federalist Papers, or maybe from St. Thomas Aquinas. And I would have said probably the ideal regime is really a mixed regime that includes elements of all the three types of regime that Polybius recognizes as being legitimate and good forms of government, blah, blah. And their eyes would glaze over, or they might just disagree with me and say, like, what? I'm pro-democracy, weirdo. What are you talking about? Yeah. We would, if they asked about free speech, I would give an argument like I made in my book, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. And I would have, said that actually there are limits to speech, and in the American tradition, blah, blah, blah. And their eyes would glaze over, and they'd probably disagree with me. But we don't need to agree on all those things. If I had a conversation with Bobby Kennedy or Elon Musk about any number of issues, we would disagree about them, and would disagree fundamentally, maybe about some of those issues. But that one issue, it's like the key that just unlocks all the rest. It's the key that says, hey, are you an honest person? Basically, I think that's what it is. We're going to be honest with each other. We're going to argue in good faith. We both want something for our country that is even plausibly similar. Okay, great. Now we're on the same team. And that's why we're all going to show up to the same Trump rally, and you're going to have Kennedy, the most prominent living Kennedy, and Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat presidential candidate, and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and a bunch of right-wing Republicans. And it's actually going to make sense that we're all together.
Yeah, one of the things that I continually say on IRL with Tim, my interest in being active in this space is really about kind of trying to separate the crazy progressives from the normal Democrats, right? And trying to remind the normal Democrats that they're fundamentally liberals, which is what, people that are conservative usually are comfortable with the term classical liberal.
Some of them.
That's something. Some of
not
them.
All of
some.
us.
And I understand that there is nuance, but most of the time when if you say you're a classical liberal, people are like, okay, they want the things that the founders would want. They approve of, again, freedom of speech. The individual comes before the state. The state exists to protect the rights of the individual, to secure property rights. These things are kind of, or generally thought of as universals in America. Progressives don't believe
that is what the classical liberals believe. That's true. Not to interrupt too much, but some conservatives have a different view of things. But maybe we'll get into that later on Timcast IRL. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's fair. But the progressives, they don't even believe in property rights. They don't believe in any fundamental rights. They believe that words are power, and that's all that matters. So what they say is only so that way they can attain power. It's a postmodern worldview.
Yeah,
they don't believe in the Enlightenment principles. They believe the Enlightenment was an error. They don't believe in any of the founding principles from the U.S. And I think that if we can separate the progressives, the postmodernists, from the liberals, then we can at least have a conversation with the liberals, because conservatives, classical liberals, and liberals can talk and at least are speaking the same language. Postmodernists and people that are extremely progressive, they don't even believe that you can talk in a good faith way. They believe that words are only exist to exert power, and so they'll lie and won't care, because if they get their way, they win. That's all they care about. It's only about power. So whereas there are going to be differences between conservatives, liberals, and classical liberals and liberals and stuff, I think at least you're playing the same game, whereas the postmodernists and progressives, they're playing a totally different game.
Well, I really like your point, and I might take it even further. With the real leftists, it's not just that they can't talk to conservatives; they can't talk. If you really believe words don't convey meaning, if you really believe that we're all just kind of grunting like baboons, trying to hit each other on the head with a stick, then talking doesn't even mean anything, because there's no meaning that's being conveyed. That's a really, really interesting point. But perhaps we'll leave that there, because I think, Phil, if I'm not mistaken, I want to let the cat out of the bag. I believe I'll be seeing you later tonight. Is that right?
Well, I tell you what, I hope so. I've been hoping. There has been rumors, and I hope that if you do end up coming, I hope you bring the smoking jacket. Well, because you look dapper, and I like being in the presence of dapper-looking men.
Stop it! Get out of here. At the very least, I could bring those cigars. That I really
that would be wonderful as well.
Phil Labonte. Everybody needs to go watch Phil. Check out all of Phil's stuff, but watch Phil tonight on Timcast, because we'll see what happens. We'll see. It's we're all hanging out in Nashville. We'll see. We'll see what goes on. Phil, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay,
I do want to get to a little bit from the iPad. The left is a dumpster fire, says Catholic Homeschool. So true. The left is I'm not going to say that on. It's a fine enough line, but I probably won't say it on YouTube. Because we're live on YouTube right now, because we're waiting. We're going to hang out with our friend, Monsieur Shapiro, momentarily. The left is all emotion, says Jiminy's Cricket. That's true. It's true in a really deep way, in that normal people, we all have passions, but we try to bring our passions under the command of our reason. So, if somebody cuts you off in traffic, you hope that you won't just fly into a rage, cut that person off, pull out your AK-47 and start blasting like Rambo, right? You kind of hope, you think, okay, all right, got my wrath is firing up a little. We're not going to indulge that. I'm going to bring my passions under the control of reason. But the libs do not do that. They shriek and they scream, generally. Honest Abe, is Ben going to have his show or members block after this, or are we going to get kicked off again? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't run things over here. I do my show, and then if Ben wants to show up, he can do that as well. The Dems took Joe off the ballot, and so the dead people did not feel represented and did not vote. That's a good point. Maybe that's why why Kamala lost the dead people vote, that can sometimes push the Democrats over the limit. Okay, there's also one, before I'll try to get to a little bit more iPad. There is one little compilation I want to get to, though, and I didn't get to it in the main show. I felt it would be a little too indulgent, but I would like to play it, at least for all of us here on YouTube. Just, it's maybe a little bit schadenfreude. There's a compilation going around of people telling Donald Trump for more than a decade now that he will not be president. Please take it away, Mr. Obama.
I believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
I don't think he'll end up being president of the United States.
Will he win the general election?
I don't believe so, no.
I don't think there's any way that Donald Trump gets elected president of the United States.
Tomorrow night, I think when Hillary Clinton wins, that Donald Trump will have lost this election from the very first day he announced.
Donald Trump will have been kept from the White House by a big, beautiful brown wall.
Clinton has 274 in the lean Republican or solid Republican. So something has to flip.
Kentucky, where Fox News can project that Donald Trump will prevail, picking up 8 electoral votes.
just taken you up through part of 2016. I don't really have the time to, it would be too indulgent for me to play the whole thing. But you got to remember, this goes back to 2011, 2012, White House Correspondents Association dinner. Trump has been making noise about running for president. It's the other thing. When people say Trump just ran for president in 2016 as a lark, as a marketing stunt, this man talked about running for president in the 1980s. He ran a major newspaper ad against Reagan about charting a new course or building on the promises of Reagan in the 80s. He then began to run for president in 2000 as a Reform Party candidate. He then talked about running for president in 2012. There was a Comedy Central roast of Donald Trump, and he made it in no small part about running for president. And then he ultimately didn't, and Obama mocked him and said, well, Mr. Trump, you're never going to be president. The political saga of Donald Trump is not just a thing that started in 2016. He has been looking at this since the 80s. He's an intentional guy. He's an intentional guy, a pretty intelligent guy, and clearly pretty politically effective because he is now one of the most significant presidents in American history. Forget about Grover Cleveland. This guy is a major historical figure, whatever happens now. Now, I am also told President Biden is going to be speaking. Who knew that he still could? President Biden will be speaking from the Rose Garden at just about 13 minutes from now. And Monsieur Shapiro is going to be covering that. This is a win-win. You get to see Biden probably gloating and thrilled that Kamala lost. You're going to see Biden, I don't know, he's going to walk out there wearing the dark MAGA hat. And also then, you're not going to need to pay any attention to Shapiro's show because Ben is going to be watching the Rose Garden. He'll be giving his commentary as that happens. But first, in our remaining few moments here, I'm so pleased to be joined by my friend and colleague, Cabot Phillips. Cabot, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michael, for having me.
So, Cabot, one thing that ever since Trump won, I've tried not to let intrude upon my show is the fact that we're now starting to lose some of these races. Because I'm feeling really good, and so but I know you're paying attention to a lot of the constantly changing facts on the ground. Election night ends, Trump wins in a landslide, and things are looking good in the Michigan Senate race, in the Wisconsin Senate race. And actually, they weren't necessarily looking that good in the Nevada Senate race, but it started to look good in the Nevada Senate race. Arizona wasn't looking so hot, but it's tightened up a little bit. So, okay, where are we? Senate, House, what is the Trump administration? What is the Trump government going to look like?
Yeah, well, it looks like Republicans likely will get to 53 seats. Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick holding on to a narrow lead. We're waiting for the last 5% or so of votes to come in. I don't even think it's 5%.
Last I saw it was 98% reported. So it's this last 2% is taking so long. When are we going to hear about Pennsylvania?
They're telling us that it should be by the end of tomorrow. But again, we just don't know. Historical precedent has shown it could be weeks from now. We still probably won't know in Arizona for a week, although it looks like Kari Lake is going to lose pretty handily. But it looks like Republicans will be at 53. In the House, we're still waiting for a few dozen seats, actually, to be called there. Decision Desk HQ, which the Daily Wire has partnered with for data, they have Republican odds at 90% for holding the House majority there. Okay. Remember, you need 218 seats for majority. Republicans right now called in 206. Democrats are at 191. There are 18 seats right now where Republicans are ahead. So if they can hold on to really even just 12 of those 18, they will have the majority. Most projections that we're seeing make it seem like Republicans will end up with around 220 seats. So a very narrow majority, which could make it more difficult. We've seen the turmoil in the House recently. They haven't really been able to get their act together. So it only takes 4 or 5 of these squishy Republicans to make it very difficult for Republicans in the Trump administration to get their agenda through the House. But the administration themselves, President-elect Trump and his team, have been saying that they're going to hit the ground running on day one. They said they're totally confident they will have a House majority, and they're going to make sure that they get those Republicans in line in the House. The Senate should not be nearly as much of an issue, though.
I do wonder if it will be easier to get the House in line. Trying to lead the House majority for Republicans is like herding cats a lot of the time. However, I think it might be a little bit tougher when the stakes are lower, when you have a Democrat president, I think then the infighting might be able to kick up a little bit. If you've got a strong leader in President Trump who can really apply both sticks and carrots to various members of the House, do you anticipate that the Republicans are more likely to get in line?
It does seem that way. From everything we're hearing out of D.C., it seems like Johnson and other House leadership, Scalise, they're essentially preparing their guys, saying, hey, we have the clear mandate. Okay, there's no more questions. You know, when Democrats were in office, it might have been easy for you guys to drag your feet a little bit and show your constituents at home, hey, you know, I'm trying to play both sides here. There's no more room for that. Republicans have the mandate clearly from the American people. You look at the popular vote, you look at what's happening in the House, Senate, presidency. So I do expect to see a lot more pressure on some of those squishier Republicans to get in line. And also, Mike Johnson is coming in as the speaker in a much stronger position than we've seen in years past when McCarthy was having a lot of trouble keeping his gang in line.
Okay, so now tell me just a little bit about what happened in Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. I really like Sam Brown. There's nothing against Mike Rogers or Ed Hovde. I just don't know them really. And I had a long interview with Sam Brown. I'm really impressed with the guy. He was leading at one point in that race down there. I guess it's been called for his opponent, for Jackie Rosen. But why is it that Trump did well in these states? You know, Trump, he wins Wisconsin, he wins Michigan. Why did Trump do better than the Senate candidates?
Well, we're hearing different answers from these two parties. The Republican side, they're saying that, you know, the focus of voters was a lot more on Donald Trump and that the name ID for him was helping and that you might have a lot of low propensity voters that were only coming out to cast their ballot for Donald Trump, and they just didn't care as much about the down ballot races. And so that was impacting things. The Democrats are saying that this is actually a sign of optimism for them, that there were so many Senate races, and even Montana, where they lost that race, Tester still ran 13 points ahead of Kamala Harris. We saw, a number of states, Ohio as well, where these Democratic Senate candidates, obviously Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, where they were running ahead of Harris. And so the Democrats are saying, hey, this is actually proof that the Democratic brand as a whole can still win over voters. We can still win elections in the future. This was just a Kamala Harris, Joe Biden problem. And so they are telling themselves, hey, look, don't worry, guys, the brand as a whole, that's not the issue. Once we move forward 2 or 4 years from now and the Biden administration fades into history and oblivion, we'll have a lot more success. And so that is their general messaging, and that's what they think the running ahead shows.
But what is the brand, I guess? You know, to me, it seemed the reason they picked Kamala and the reason they picked Joe Biden, for that matter, is that neither of them really has personality. Both of those people are just empty suits. They are avatars for the Democrat Party. So if the avatars for the Democrat Party went down in flames, or I guess Biden was thrown out in flames and then Kamala went down on the ballot, what's the brand? Are they going to run John Tester next time for president? Like, what's the lesson they're taking?
They don't have a brand. Yeah. Their brand for the last 8 years has been, we hate Donald Trump, we're not Donald Trump. I saw this over and over with the voters that I talked to in battleground states, talked to hundreds of battleground voters around the country. I never heard from the vast majority of Harris supporters why they were actually voting for her beyond Donald Trump. The first and last name out of 3/4 of Democrat voters was Donald Trump. It was not Kamala Harris. And so they were saying, look, I don't need to know anything about Kamala Harris or what the Democrats are running because I'm just voting against Donald Trump. And the Democrats were encouraging that. They were actively trying to not give them clear policy positions. They were actively trying to hide Harris from describing how she would legislate if elected. And so they were relying on, hey, Trump's the boogeyman. That is our core message. But in the future now, they're left with this problem. Trump is not going to be on the ticket 4 years from now. And so what is their message going to be? They do not have a coherent message right now. And one beautiful thing that I've seen in the last few days has been the blame game from Democrats, where progressives are saying, well, she wasn't far left enough and she was trying to kowtow to the moderates in the party. And the moderates are saying, well, it's the progressives. You guys forced her too far left on these things. They have a clear problem looking forward in the future. They don't have a coherent message. You've got the GOP more united than ever in modern history, and you can see that with the results. The Democrats are going to have to figure that out, and I don't think there's a clear answer.
So I agree. It's delightful to watch the Democrats infighting like this. But what is your answer to it? They've posed all these potential scapegoats. They've said, I'm so Italian today. I'm just knocking over microphones. They've suggested it's the fault of black men. They've suggested it's the fault of Hispanics. They've said both groups, this was just on one cable news panel, that both groups alternately hate women and black people. They've said it's the fault of Kamala Harris. They've said it's the fault of timing. She just didn't have enough time. They've said it's the fault of Joe Biden. He didn't get out early enough. I guess that's related to the time issue. They've said, you have Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks saying it's the fault of the mods, so-called moderates, and they need to become more populist. As you say, the establishment, she's just gone too woke. It's the fault of the campus intifada. So, okay, what is it? Why'd she go down so hard?
I think the biggest reason, there's two of them. The biggest reason, she's a terrible candidate. In 2020, she lasted shorter in the Democratic primary than Marianne Williamson, no one wanted to vote for her. And the only reason that she even was on the top of the ticket is because of the anti-democratic coup to place her there. And also, you can't ignore just the fundamentals of the race. It's so easy for people in the media who are pontificating about, well, who could win this race before Tuesday, them saying, well, there's all these nuanced discussions about, the Puerto Rico comments and the unrest people have about Donald Trump. No, the fundamentals of this race all along were what was going to decide things. And the fundamentals were that the economy has sucked for the last 4 years, that the border has been overflowing. And it turns out those two things are actually what decided this race. And I think the most important thing for Democrats to grapple with is the fact that their prediction of states like Texas in the future moving more purple, and that they were going to solidify their strong, deep blue states, and then they were going to expand the map. That did not come true. If you look at the deep blue states, Democrats lost major ground. So in 2020, New Jersey, Donald Trump lost that race by 16 points. This year, he lost by 5 points. In 2020, he lost California by 29 points. This time, it was only 17 points. New York, it was 23 points in 2020. He lost New York by 12 points this year. And Illinois, the bluest of blue, Illinois, he only lost by 8 points this year. And so these states where they are the safest are now looking like those in the future could actually be the ones that they're having to spend some money in. And their hopes of turning Texas purple, that did not come to fruition. Republicans won Texas and Florida by larger margins than Democrats won Illinois, New Jersey, and New York.
Wow. That is because my whole life I've heard they're going to turn Texas blue, and I, like a dummy, I fall for it sometimes. Not every time, but sometimes I fall for it. I was a little nervous that Senator Cruz was going to lose his race, at least for a while over the summer, but it hasn't happened. In many ways, the opposite is happening, as you say, in their states. That's a great relief, no question about it. I just wonder, as they move forward, as Trump is no longer an issue for them anymore, if as you say, they've made their identity Trump for 10 years, what are they going to run on? And then, two, can they be honest with themselves? As part of the reason they're blaming all of these other factors is because, as you suggest, they can't say the economy's bad. They can't say that immigration is a problem. They can't say that foreign affairs have gone down the tank since Biden has been in office. And so it occurs to me that they have this media problem, which is the media, in order to point to the real issues that drove people to the polls, they would have to admit that they've been lying to the voters for years. They've been lying about the economy. They've been lying about immigration. They've been lying about the transgender issue, which clearly resonated for a lot of people. They've been trying to downplay it. They've been lying about how much Americans love abortion. They've been lying about everything. So they can't. That's why all of this chatter is just going to remain so fruitless. Is they as a systemic problem, they can't get to the heart of the matter.
And Michael, they've also lied to people about who they have to support. Like they've told minority voters, you have to vote Democrat because the other side hates you. They did this especially with Latino voters. Latest exit polling this morning, there was a new one from NBC. Trump won 46% of Latino voters. If you
Wow. Yep. Right. Right. But, we're not deporting those. We want more of those voters. Cabot, we have to leave it there because Joe Biden is appearing in the Rose Garden. And I bet I'm not actually putting money on this. I wouldn't be surprised if he wore a dark MAGA hat, though. Very few people are happier in America right now than Joe Biden. Cabot Phillips, thank you so much. I turn now to my other friend and colleague, the one, the only man who's not here right now. I think you're back in Florida, Mr. Benjamin Shapiro.
Yes, Michael Knowles, I am in the best state in America. We're still doing America. We're going to do America for 4 years. I've not tired of the winning. Donald Trump lied to me. He promised me I would tire of the winning. I've not yet tired of it. In fact, I am enthused by it. I was telling friends this morning, Michael, that, I have this growing feeling in the pit of my stomach. It's either indigestion or optimism. I've never experienced optimism before. And so this is an unfamiliar sensation for me.
To be safe, let's just assume it's from all the popcorn and the jelly beans at backstage. It has to be the indigestion, right?
It might have been that.
Before I let you go, Ben,
it definitely could be that.
Do you have any predictions for this Rose Garden press conference from Biden?
I mean, it's going to be amazing when he declares himself the first female president, just as like the last dig at Kamala. It's like, you know what? On my way out, you took me out. So I think that it's going to be the most passive-aggressive press conference pretty much ever, right? I mean, he's going to come out. He's going to make some sort of statement about how we believe in the peaceful transition of power, like the same kind of nonsense that she was spouting the other day when she conceded yesterday. But I do think that there are going to be some backhanded slaps at Kamala Harris and her campaign because he is pissed about it, and they are dumping all of this in his lap again. Mm-hmm. They foisted him out of his nomination, and now they're trying to blame him for her losing, and he's ticked off as hell about it. So that's what I'm here for. I mean, I've already vowed publicly that any book that is written by a Kamala Harris campaign insider, I will read. I will devour those. That's my junk food, right? Those are my soap operas. Like my wife with British romantic TV. Like that's my jam. I mean, I'll just read that. I will all day long. So I'm very eager for this press conference. It's supposed to happen any moment, which means that it'll probably happen about 2 hours from now, since Joe Biden has never shown up on time for a press conference at any point. But Michael, we're going to let you go, and we're going to go ahead and start a good show now. So it's been good to see you here.
Wait a second. All right. Good to see you. Good to see you, Mr. Shapiro. Good to see all of you out there.
And enjoy more cigars.
Internet land. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show. We will see you tomorrow.
Yeah, go do that. All right, folks. Well, America has elected Donald Trump as the 47th president. We're marking at the moment with a 47 of our own. Use code TRUMP to get 47% off a new annual Daily Wire Plus membership. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Join us with this exclusive offer. So we are currently awaiting the president of the United States. I know. Remember that guy? Remember him? I know you don't. Right? But you remember his name is Joseph Robinette Biden. And if you recall, he was the actual nominee for the presidency from the Democratic Party until, unfortunately, he suffered brain death on stage with Donald Trump, at which point they shoveled his now maggot-infested corpse out the back door. But he's still the president, which is super weird. So yesterday, Kamala Harris, she did a concession speech to Donald Trump. We'll get into that in a little while. And today we are expecting that Joe Biden at some point will wobble out, presumably on a walker with the tennis balls on it, in order to make some sort of statement about Donald Trump having defeated everyone around him, but not him. And it's going to be fun. I mean, I'll admit I'm up for it because the recriminations have begun between Team Biden and Team Harris, and it is delicious. I have publicly vowed that I will read any book, any piece, anything about the absolute crap show that was the Kamala Harris campaign. I am here for it. I want to hear about how Joe Biden wrecked all of this by not stepping out early. I want to hear from Joe Biden's team about how Kamala Harris is an absolute trash heap of horror at politics and how her campaign was run like just absolute clown car nonsense. I want to hear all of it. I want to hear how much they hated each other. I want to hear how Jill couldn't stand Kamala, but was kind of fond of Doug. I want to hear like every bit of gossip. This is my Gossip Girl. I am here for every single moment of it. I've been waiting for it. I'm enjoying all of it. Honestly, the amount of winning that I'm currently experiencing, I don't think I can tire of it. And so that is the first promise that Donald Trump has made that he has not kept, in my view, is that he promised I would be so tired of the winning that I would be tired of the winning. I'm not yet tired of the winning. I require more winning. The demand for winning continues to increase even as the supply of winning increases. Supply must be increased of winning in order to meet demand. Speaking of winning, the Republicans are poised to keep control of the House of Representatives after winning the Senate. So there are a couple of bad news pieces, apparently, according to sort of the latest counts in Nevada, the latest count in Wisconsin. It looks as though the Democrats may retain the seats in both Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin has been called at this point against Eric Hovde in favor of Tammy Baldwin. Nevada is still unbelievably tight. That one may go to a recount, considering how tight that particular race is between Sam Brown and Jackie Rosen. However, Republicans, even without those two seats, end up with 53 seats in the United States Senate because they take Jim Justice's seat, which takes them to 50, and then they take Bernie Moreno's seat in Ohio, which takes them to 51. Tim Sheehy's seat takes them to 52. And Dave McCormick's seat takes them to 53. So they're at 53 in the Senate right now. Everything else is, it would be great, but it's gravy because Republicans have a solid, durable majority at 53 seats. And they're apparently going to retain the House in all likelihood as well. According to the Wall Street Journal late last night, in the House, Democrats' path to take back control narrowed as Republicans outperformed expectations on the strength of Trump's ability to make inroads among working class Black and Latino voters, especially men, supplementing his support among white working class voters. Democrats' hopes for a slew of pickups in California did not materialize, greatly tempering their hopes of flipping the House, which Republicans currently control 220 to 212 with 3 vacancies. Right now, very likely that Republicans, again, retain the House majority. House Speaker Mike Johnson is likely ensconced in that place. Donald Trump likes Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson has a good relationship with Donald Trump. They will work well together. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell took a victory lap. He called it a hell of a good day and praised the high-caliber Republican candidates that he and other Senate leaders recruited to run. He deserves to take a victory lap for that because McConnell did have a much broader impact on picking Republicans in the primaries than he has in years prior. Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, he says everyone's fed up and fired up. They're fed up about the cost of living, the rising crime rates, the wide open border, the weakness on the world stage. So that means that Donald Trump is going to re-enter office with a triumvirate. He'll have the White House, he'll have the House, and he'll have the Senate. Which, by the way, is better than it would have been had he won re-election in 2020, actually. Because in 2020, as you recall, the Democrats actually had control of the United States Senate. So that would have changed things quite a bit. Meanwhile, we have new information from the CBS 2024 exit polls. The swings among pretty much every population are quite astounding. So Trump actually lost 1 point among whites. He gained 3 points among Black voters. He gained 27 points. There's a 27-point swing toward Donald Trump among Hispanic voters, according to that CBS 2024 exit poll. Why? The answer is because you know what Hispanic Americans want? The American dream. That would be the reason. The Hispanic Americans, you know what? They're traditionally minded when it comes to family and when it comes to things like gender. They like their church. They like their community. They like the American dream, the idea that they get to own property and then increase their wealth in this country. They want opportunity. It turns out that the normie American dream is still the thing most people pursue. It's not the Democratic version of the American dream, which is you can shtup whoever you want with no consequences. Here's a government check. That American dream does not appeal to the vast majority of Americans. The American dream for the vast majority of Americans is the same thing it was for their parents and their grandparents. As I said yesterday on the show, 2024, revenge of the normies. Donald Trump picked up among every age group except for elderly voters. There's a 13-point swing from 2020 to 2024 among voters aged 18 to 29, largely among young men. He picked up 5 points among voters aged 30 to 44. Among those aged 45 to 64, the people who actually have lots of kids at this point, he picked up 9 points among that group. So between 30 and 64, he picked up 5 points and 9 points respectively in those various age groups. Harris did better among Democrats. Trump did 1 point better among Republicans. Republicans picked up 10 points with independents. Late-breaking voters broke toward Trump, despite all the media's best attempts to turn Tony Hinchcliffe and his Puerto Rico joke into a national issue. It turns out most people looked at Kamala at the very end. They're like, you know what? There is nothing here except for a bad agenda, and we do not like it. Republicans picked up 5 points among men. They picked up 7 points among women. Remember that time that Kamala Harris was supposed to bring the brat, the energy, and the joy to the lady vote? Yeah, that didn't happen. And it also turns out that Americans are beginning to take abortion off the ballot as a chief federal issue. Why? Because that's precisely what happens under Dobbs. Dobbs relegates this not to the federal level, but to the state level. That means that if you have differing views about abortion, you vote to the state legislature based on that. You vote for a governor or a senator based on that in the state assembly. You don't vote for your senator or your congressperson or your president based on that because it is no longer a federal level issue thanks to Dobbs. So it actually takes a really controversial issue off the table for Republican politicians. The only places that Kamala Harris increased her turnout are high-income people who are white atheists. Those would be the places. That's it. Well, I mean, that's a shrinking base in the United States of America. It turns out that demographic revolution that the Democrats were talking about back in the 2012 era, turns out it doesn't work quite for you if you decide to treat everybody who's a member of a minority as though they are a San Francisco College of the Arts graduate making $120,000 a year for a job in graphic design. Turns out that ain't most Americans. How well did Donald Trump do in this election? Politico. New Jersey might be a swing state now. Woo! New Jersey. Kamala Harris won the state by 5. She won the state of New Jersey by 5 points. You want to know why? A lot of blue-collar people live in New Jersey. Turns out there are a lot of New York expats who live in New Jersey. They don't like how New York is looking. Donald Trump outperformed, by the way, in New York as well. In fact, Donald Trump lost New York by fewer points than Kamala Harris lost Florida. Now, remember that time when this is supposed to wreck the economy, right? We had heard, remember that there was all the economists, they say that Donald Trump is going to radically increase prices. Donald Trump is going to be horrible for business. That had about as much credibility as the 51 intelligence experts who suggested the Hunter Biden laptop was not real. What happened with the Dow Jones Industrial Average? It surged to its biggest gain in 2 years. Bond yields and Bitcoin also posted sharp climbs. The markets are going full on in. Stephen Dayton says, quote, the markets are now trading full on Trump trade. All 3 major stock indices advanced to records. Trump predicted this. Again, this is not hard to see, okay? As the co-owner and co-founder of a large business, and we are now a large business here at the Daily Wire, co-owner and co-founder of that business, our business will do much better under Donald Trump. Not just because of the politics. It will do better because it is easier to do business in a country where you know the regulatory state is not going to randomly inject itself into the running of your business, where you know the tax rates aren't going to wildly change and then become confiscatory of all of the production. Donald Trump provides a stable, solid economy where the rules don't change except in the direction of loosening restrictions on business, and taxes ain't going to change unless they get lower. No wonder people are investing. No wonder people are tossing money into the stock market. The Dow Jones Industrial soared about 1,500 points. That is the biggest daily percentage gain since November 2022. The S&P 500 added 2.5%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ rose 3%. And these numbers are not a shock if you know anything about business. Of course that's the case, especially because Republicans are now going to be able to make permanent the Trump tax cuts, which were quite good for the economy. People forget, but if Kamala Harris had won, then the snapback to the prior tax rates probably would have happened, and that would have crimped the growth of the American economy. Instead, those tax cuts are now going to become permanent. They are. That's going to be like the first order of business for the American Congress and for Donald Trump, which is great. And business people are ecstatic about it. Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, which is kind of one of his smaller holdings, obviously he's the owner of Amazon, he congratulated Trump on his victory, said big congratulations to our 45th and now 47th president on an extraordinary political comeback and decisive victory. No nation has bigger opportunities. Wishing Donald Trump all success in leading and uniting the America we all love. By the way, all the tech bros, all the ones who are pretending they liked Kamala, they were lying to themselves perhaps, but all of their businesses do better because Donald Trump is president of the United States. Okay, again, we are still awaiting Joe Biden arriving in the Rose Garden to give some sort of press conference. We'll bring you that as soon as he decides to dot her out. First, have you ever thought about what charities and causes the brands you give your hard-earned money to support? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, they support veterans. They're leading the fight against woke corporations, and let me tell you why. Pure Talk is veteran-led. They actually put their money where their mouth is. They've alleviated $10 million in veteran debt. They donate tens of thousands of dollars every month to help prevent veteran suicide. They just donated $50,000 to Mike Rowe Works, providing scholarships to veterans learning trades after active duty. Pure Talk gives you the same exact coverage as the big carriers, America's most dependable 5G network, for literally half the cost. Why are you still giving your money to Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, when there's a better option that actually supports our veterans? When you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk on a qualifying plan, you'll get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. That means unlimited access to our incredible library of content. Am I Racist? What is a Woman? Mr. Bertram, Run I Fight, plus uncensored ad-free daily shows, and 1 year free of our new kids platform, Bentkey. The only way you can get this special offer is by going to puretalk.com/Shapiro or call and mention my name. Stop overpaying for your cell phone plan. Go to puretalk.com/Shapiro today. Switch to a qualifying plan. Get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. Also, you need to wake up feeling dialed in and ready for anything. I got to tell you, I'm really short on sleep, so thank God for Black Rifle Coffee. Head to blackriflecoffee.com right now. Shop 30% off for Veterans Week this November 8th through the 14th. Each of their coffees was roasted right here in the United States by a veteran-led team of experienced coffee graders obsessed with bringing you the perfect cup of coffee. Black Rifle Coffee Company takes pride in serving coffee and culture to people who love America. They have a huge selection of dark roast, light roast, everything in between. You also need to check out their gear. Black Rifle has a massive lineup of tees, hoodies, mugs, top-shelf brewing gear, and more. Everything Black Rifle creates, from mugs to graphic tees, are made with patriotic designs you're not going to find anywhere else. A portion of every purchase you make with them goes to support veteran and first responder causes, too. From getting funding and equipment to first responders and helping veterans fight cancer, your money goes a long way toward giving back to people who serve our nation. Head on over to blackriflecoffee.com. Save yourself 30% on America's coffee. That's blackriflecoffee.com to get 30% off. This show right now, it is fueled almost entirely by Black Rifle Coffee. Go check them out right now. blackriflecoffee.com. Okay, so late yesterday afternoon, Kamala Harris finally emerged in order to speak to the American people and to let them know her feelings about her loss. Again, we are still awaiting the President of the United States. Remember that guy? I know. We're still awaiting him. They're prepping his podium and everything. We'll get to him when he decides to walk out. The good news is that when he actually leaves the White House, the time from when he leaves the White House door to the time he gets to the podium is a solid couple of minutes, so he should have some notice. I mean, it's like 20 feet. But dude doesn't move particularly fast anymore. In any case, we'll get to him in a moment. But Kamala Harris, she emerged yesterday to explain that her heart is full. Her heart is full.
So let me say, my heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright. As long as we never give up, and as long as we keep fighting.
I mean, she never really says what they're fighting for. And that, of course, is the Democratic secret. If you just say fight a lot, and then you say it about Donald Trump, then you think you're going to win. But the things they're fighting for are not exactly popular things, which is why the recriminations have broken out so loudly. The Democrats still trying to struggle for a way forward. She didn't give any help here. She didn't actually spell out what the agenda for Democrats moving forward is in any way, shape, or form, because she is a giant bag of nothing. She's a nothing bag. And that nothing bag is filled with wonderful nothings, like platitudes and truisms and nonsense. That is all she is. So here she was yesterday talking, for example, about how she's conceding, but she's not conceding the fight that fueled the campaign.
While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. The fight for freedom, for opportunity, for fairness, and the dignity of all people. A fight for the ideals at the heart of our nation, the ideals that reflect America at our best. That is a fight I will never give up.
Okay, I don't even know what she's talking about. I mean, I do because I know what her agenda is. But all I'm hearing is the Charlie Brown teacher. Because she's been saying, what does that mean? I will fight for American ideals. Could you spell that out? What are the American ideals that are at our best? Would that be like the boys in the girls' locker rooms? Are we talking here about Rachel Levine as Health and Human Services Undersecretary? Like, what exactly are we talking? Are we talking about like cutting the American military while attempting to make nice with pro-Hamas protesters? Which part of the American values are we? She's never going to fill that in because the minute she does, it's a problem. And she finished appropriately enough with some more platitudes. She talked about darkness and stars and darkness and stars, something like that.
The adage is Only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service.
Wow. So that's so moving. The light of a bright billion of stars, nay, trillion of stars, nay, bajillion of stars. I think I've heard this before. Wasn't this George H.W. Bush's 1,000 points of light thing? Except that actually had a policy proposal attached. Here she's just talking. She sounds like some of the worst dialogue from Rings of Power. Honest to goodness, that's what it sounds like. She sounds like she was in the writer's room for Rings of Power and just started cribbing off their notes. So I think one of the reasons that you're not seeing kind of the fury that you might normally see when Donald Trump wins an election is because no one was all that invested in Kamala Harris. How could you be? How would you be invested emotionally in Kamala Harris? As a giant nothing burger of a human, as an NPC, what exactly about Kamala Harris was the draw? The answer is that the draw was that she was not the doddering old man, that she was not the dead guy. That was the only draw. And it turns out that's not much of a draw. So when Donald Trump wins the popular and the electoral college, everybody's like, well, Barack Obama, who's just as responsible for this loss as Kamala Harris, as we will see, Team Biden is actually blaming Barack Obama, among others, for the loss. He and his wife have written a statement on Twitter about the 2024 election. I won't do the Obama voice for all of it, but I'll do it for the very beginning. So just a warning. Over the last few weeks, through election day, millions of Americans cast their votes, not just for president, but for leaders at every level. Now, the results are in, and we want to congratulate President Trump and Senator Vance on their victory. This is obviously not the outcome we'd hoped for, given our profound disagreements with the Republican ticket on a whole host of issues. But living in democracy is about recognizing that our point of view won't always win out, and being willing to accept the peaceful transfer of power. Now, here is the thing. Former President Obama. He finishes this statement with this. The good news is these problems are solvable, but only if we listen to each other, only if we abide by the core constitutional principles and democratic norms that made this country great. It's this sort of fib that makes me insane. Barack Obama did not care one iota for the constitutional structure. This is a man who, when stymied by Congress, said that he had a pen and a phone and he was going to use them. Barack Obama led off the era of things like killing the judicial filibuster. It was Barack Obama who thwarted the comity of the races in the United States in a unique way. It was Barack Obama who alienated American from American. This is in my lifetime. He made it so much worse. By every available polling statistic, he made it worse. When he says we need to listen to each other, Barack Obama has never listened to anything except the sound of his own voice. So when he says, this is a campaign that termed Donald Trump Hitlerian fascist evil, and now you're saying that you want to get together and have a listen-in conversation? Well, what I really get the feeling is that now that you're out of power, you want Donald Trump to listen to you after spending years ripping on everybody on the other side of the aisle. And that is not how it works. That is not how it works. Well, the weeping, the wailing, the gnashing of teeth has begun. And so if we're here to enjoy just a little Schadenfreude, well, then we may as well do that. Sunny Hostin of The View, the women of The View decided they were all going to wear dresses of mourning yesterday. They wore black into work at The View yesterday, which was enjoyable and also slimming. So Sunny Hostin lost it yesterday, talked about how she is at risk. Her daughter is at risk. She and her daughter live in New York. Nothing is going to change for them, except crime rates might get worse because it's still Democrat governed. She's a very rich woman. But here we go with this hysteria. Oh, sorry, we'll get to that. We'll get to Sunny Hostin in a moment. First, Dark Joe is coming out. Dark Brandon, here he comes. He's going to talk.
Thank you. Please. Thank you. Good to see this cabinet and staff together.
He's so pleased she lost. He can't even contain himself. Look at him. He's like, what a great day.
Thank you. Please. Thank you.
He doesn't feel emotionally divided about this.
Yeah. It's good to see you all. Particularly good to see my granddaughter sitting in the front row here. Hi, Finn. How are you, honey? For over 200 years, America has carried on the greatest experiment in self-government in the history of the world. And that's not hyperbole. That's a fact. We're the people. The people vote and choose their own leaders, and they do it peacefully. And we're in a democracy. The will of the people always prevails. Yesterday, I spoke with President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory. And I assured him that I'd direct my entire administration to work with his team to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. That's what the American people deserve. Yesterday, I also spoke with Vice President Harris. She's been a partner and a public servant. She ran an inspiring campaign, and everyone got to see something that I learned early on to respect so much, her character. She has a backbone like a ramrod. She has great character, true character. She gave her whole heart and effort, and she and her entire team should be proud of the campaign they ran. You know, the struggle for the soul of America, since our very founding, has always been an ongoing debate and still vital today. I know for some people, it's a time for victory, to state the obvious. For others, it's a time of loss. Campaigns are contests of competing visions. The country chooses one or the other. We accept the choice the country made. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree. Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature. I also hope we can lay to rest the question about the integrity of the American electoral system. It is honest, it is fair, and it is transparent. And it can be trusted, win or lose. I also hope we can restore the respect for all our election workers who busted their necks and took risks at the outset. We should thank them. Thank them for staffing voting sites, counting the votes, protecting the very integrity of the election. Many of them are volunteers who do it simply out of love for their country. And as they did their duty as citizens, I will do my duty as president. I'll fulfill my oath, and I will honor the Constitution. On January 20th, we'll have a peaceful transfer of power here in America. To all our incredible staff, supporters, cabinet members, all the people who've been hanging out with me for the last 40 years, God love you, as my mother would say. Thank you so much. You put so much into the past 4 years. I know it's a difficult time. You're hurting. I hear you and I see you. But don't forget all that we accomplished. It's been a historic presidency. Not because I'm president, because what we've done, what you've done. A presidency for all Americans. Much of the work we've done is already being felt by the American people, but the vast majority of it will not be felt over the next 10 years. We have legislation we passed that's just only now just really kicking in. We're going to see over $1 trillion worth of infrastructure work done, changing people's lives in rural communities and communities that are in real difficulty because it takes time to get it done. And so much more it's going to take time, but it's there. The road ahead is clear, assuming we sustain it. There's so much we can get done and will get done based on the way the legislation was passed. And it's truly historic. You know, we're leaving behind the strongest economy in the world. I know people are still hurting, but things are changing rapidly. Together, we've changed America for the better. Now we have 74 days to finish the term, our term. Let's make every day count. That's the responsibility we have to the American people. Look, folks, you all know it in your lives. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. We all get knocked down. But the measure of our character, as my dad would say, is how quickly we get back up. Remember, a defeat does not mean we are defeated. We lost this battle. The America of your dreams is calling for you to get back up. That's the story of America for over 240 years and counting. It's a story for all of us, not just some of us. The American experiment endures. We're going to be okay, but we need to stay engaged. We need to keep going. And above all, we need to keep the faith. I'm so proud to have worked with all of you. I really mean it. I sincerely mean it. God bless you all. God bless America. And may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That is the President of the United States. This is the happiest day of his life since he won election in 2020. He is so happy. You can see it written across his face. He is so delighted she lost. Because if she had won, he would just be a transitional president. Now he gets to claim that it was all her fault. Look at him. He's sitting there. He's loving it. He's pumping his fist, thumbs up, pointing to people. That dude has more mojo today than he had any time during the campaign. It is amazing. That was the President of the United States doddering Joe Biden, Dark Brandon out. Really solid stuff there from the President of the United States. Maybe he'll run again. Who knows? Anything is possible. So, again, that is Joe Biden. He's very happy. He's very happy. We'll get to all the recriminations and the reason that he's happy in just one moment. First, no one wants to think about debt, but here's the cold, hard truth. Many of us will get deeper in debt during the holidays. Last year, and this is staggering, half of American consumers took on debt just to pay for the holidays. Here's the thing. It's never too early to start planning your way out. My friends at PDS Debt can help you with a personalized solution made just for you. If you're making payments every month on your debt and watching your balances stay exactly the same, that ends right now. PDS has solutions specifically designed to help you get out of this cycle. And unlike the government's debt relief programs, everyone with 10 grand or more in eligible debt qualifies, no minimum credit score required. That is correct. Bad and fair credit accepted. They'll help you save more while paying off your debt in a fraction of the time. I've seen what debt can do to families, especially around the holidays. That's why I trust PDS Debt to help my listeners find real solutions that actually work. Start planning today. Get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/Ben. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/Ben. pdsdebt.com/Ben. Again, getting into debt, really easy. Getting out of debt, a lot harder. That's why you need my friends over at PDS Debt. Go give them a call right now. Check them out, pdsdebt.com/Ben. Also, friends and family gatherings for the holidays always bring up memories of holidays, past moments you wish you could go back and relive. My family has gone through this. Last Hanukkah, we actually found old VHS tapes of previous celebrations that we couldn't even watch anymore because no one has a VCR. This is what I'm telling you, Legacy Box is the best gift you can get anyone in your family. They're giving my listeners exclusive early access to their biggest deal of the year, digitizing your memories for just $9 per tape. That is right, $9 to preserve and share your precious moments. VHS, VHS-C, High 8, film reels, over 12 other types of analog media. You're saving over $15 per item. Here's what's important. When you digitize your memories right now, Legacy Box will digitize and send all your memories back in the cloud to access easily by Christmas, so you can relive them with your families just in time for the holidays. Look, these fellas know what they're doing. We know them. You know them personally. After 10 years in the business, Legacy Box is the world's largest digitizer. They've helped over 1 million families relive their wedding days, chaotic childhood Christmases, even road trips to Yellowstone. You've heard me talk about Legacy Box all year. Now is absolutely the best time to digitize your memories. This $9 deal will not last long. Head on over to legacybox.com/Shapiro for early access to their best deal of the year. Don't wait. Secure your digitized memories by Christmas at legacybox.com/Shapiro. That's legacybox.com/Shapiro. Okay, so back to the Schadenfreude. So Sunny Hostin over at The View. All the ladies wearing black, which is both slimming and makes them look like idiots because why are they in mourning? But here is Sunny Hostin, an extraordinarily rich woman, complaining that her life will now be a living hell. The Handmaid's Tale has begun.
I worry not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that. So again, I'm profoundly disturbed that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution did not prevent someone who participated in an insurrection from becoming president of the United States. I think that going forward, the convicted felon box on employment applications better be taken off, because if you can be the president of the United States, then you should not be prevented from employment in this country, because I remember applying for my jobs as a federal prosecutor, and there was a box for convicted felons. Well, and so that box better be taken off. And I think our healthcare system is now at risk. I think
no fluoride for anyone.
Yeah, economists have made clear that he's going to increase the debt by $7.75 trillion. I'm worried about mass deportation and internment camps, and I'm also worried about Elon Musk warning Americans to prepare for temporary hardship.
Oh my goodness, she is just too much, and you have to enjoy it. Those aren't even the best moments. Joy Behar, again, of The View, she shows up and she says, "You know what we really need? The only way to fix this is censorship. You knew they were going to do this, folks. You knew it was coming, but here's the deal: you ain't gonna get it because you lost. If you'd won, you might have gotten your censorship, but you lost, so you ain't getting it." Here's Joy Behar doing her best.
In Finland, kids in nursery school are learning to discern between fake news and real news. Yeah. They should be teaching that in this country. Yes. Teach children tolerance. Teach them to think critically.
Well, it would help if we could regulate social media, because one of the biggest offenders is D.C. and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
Oh, man, they are so mad. They are so angry. Whoopi's just sitting there, presiding over all of it. Man, the ladies of The View. Meanwhile, Claire McCaskill broke into this ads on MSNBC. She actually started crying over Kamala Harris. We found the one person in America who cares about Kamala Harris's candidacy. Even Doug was celebratory. Doug's like, man, I don't have to live in Washington, D.C. anymore. That's great. I'm going back to Beverly Hills. I'm going to, go find a nanny somewhere. Hey, here's Claire McCaskill.
For her to be selected as vice president after what I think she would tell you was a very disappointing presidential race, where I think she kind of lost her footing and was listening too much to consultants, frankly, and it didn't really exude who she was. And then to be vice president and to step into the most difficult situation in the world, where she had to be completely loyal to Joe Biden and respectful of the fact that he had chosen her, but yet maneuver in a situation. I mean, such political skill. It is just inspiring. People who don't understand what she had to do to get to this moment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just very proud of her.
By the way, what did she have to do to get to this moment? She had to fail up. So she had to work so hard to be a terrible candidate who got picked as vice president, become a terrible vice president who only became a nominee because the president died. So much. James Carville also had the ads. Just enjoy. Just take it in, folks. Just this thing, it's over. This one is not overflowing. We had to empty it out just before the show, but we've had a serious plumbing issue at the Daily Wire, because we have many of these around the office, like many of these leftist tears tumblers, and it turns out that you can't turn off the leftist tears. I mean, they are just copious amounts of tears. It's like Noah's flood around here. Anyway, here we go. James Carville.
So I'm going to I'll have to reevaluate. I'm sure I'll come up with something to make me feel good again. But right now, today, it's hard. I'll be honest with you. And the hardest thing is that I look across this country and tens of millions of people fell for this. And it's depressing. But I'll snap out of it, but I'm in a very, very dark tunnel right now.
Well, That's sad. That's very, very sad for the Harry Potter character. Meanwhile, here is Rachel Maddow. She has come up with her solution, and it's that apparently Americans hate multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy, which is weird since Donald Trump won 46% of Hispanics, according to the latest exit polls. 46%. That is the highest percentage of Hispanics ever won by a Republican Party candidate for the presidency. Donald Trump won well over 20% of the black male vote. In the swing states, Donald Trump won about 40% of the Jewish vote. Donald Trump won heavy shares of the Muslim vote. So clearly the solution, the answer to Rachel Maddow, white lady, is people clearly hate multiracial, multi-ethnic, working class democracy. Man, you got to have your head so far up your ass to believe this, but, Rachel Maddow, more flexible than previously thought.
We now are just another one in the list of countries that has decided to, hey, what the heck? Let's try the strongman thing. Let's let democracy go. Let's put in an all-powerful guy instead, see how it goes. There are many more countries in the world governed by that kind of a system than there are governed by ours. We are the only 248-year-old multiracial, pluralistic democracy in the world. And shall we keep it? A lot of our fellow Americans say we shouldn't. Now we know. Now we know for sure.
You lost an election. They voted against you. I love that. She lost 51% of the vote. And I guess democracy is over because you lost an election. So the Electoral College was bad. What happens when he wins the popular vote? That's also bad now, right? Who's anti-democracy now, lady? Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel, alleged former comedian. This is late night TV. Okay, late night TV last night was a mausoleum. Late night TV, it was like a funeral parlor. And here was Jimmy Kimmel. Remember, he's supposed to make you laugh for a living. That is his job, after all. And here he was last night, basically preaching a sermon over the body of Kamala Harris. Goodness gracious, Jimmy Kimmel.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet. And most of all, it was an absolute disaster of a night for Melania. But it was a really good night for Putin and for polio and for lovable billionaires like Elon Musk and the bros up in Silicon Valley and all the wriggling brainworms who sold what was left of their souls to bow down to Donald Trump.
Oh, I bathe in his tears. Heat them for me, servants. I bathe in those tears. Jimmy Kimmel. I love that. It was a terrible night for everyone, except for the majority of the population who think you are a schmuck, Jimmy Kimmel. Destroying late night TV one episode at a time. So maybe you flipped over to CBS and you decided to see if Stephen Colbert was going to be wrong. Stephen Colbert was not going to be funny. He was going to outcompete Jimmy Kimmel to see who could cry harder. And guess what? It's funny to me. I enjoyed it. Here was Stephen Colbert.
Hey there. How are you doing?
Hi.
If you watch the show
great.
regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
I don't.
You know, today...
I'm good.
Some people said to me, sorry you have to do a show tonight. Which is nice of them to say, but...
Me too.
I don't have to do a show. I get to do a show tonight. I'm so grateful to be with all of these talented people. Those people over here, those people that you'll never see, with the audience and the Ed Sullivan, with you people at home. Because, especially at times like this, what do we most want to be? Not alone. So thanks for being here. We're going to do a comedy show. It's a comedy show. We're going to do some jokes in just a minute because that's what we do. And I'll let you in on a little secret. No one gets into this business because everything in their life worked out great. So we're built for rough roads.
built for rough roads, Stephen Colbert. Oh, I enjoy. Oh, so good. So good. I'm not tired of the winning it. I'm not. Folks, America elected Donald Trump as the 47th president. We're marking the moment with a 47 of our own. Use code TRUMP. Get 47% off your new annual Daily Wire Plus membership. Get unfiltered, ad-free daily shows from the most trusted voices in conservative media. Enjoy our full catalog of entertainment, including the box office smash #1 documentary of 2024, Am I Racist? Plus, the breaking news, live coverage from where the story is unfolding. During Trump's historic comeback, Daily Wire was live from West Palm Beach at Trump's campaign headquarters, even at Howard University, while Kamala's hopes and the crowd's joy slipped away. Oh, was it delicious. There's never been a better time to join us. Use code TRUMP for 47% off at dailywire.com/subscribe. Well, joining us on the line is Tim Pool, the only man who wears a bigger kippah than I do. Oh, no, it's just a beanie. He's not Jewish. Anyway, Tim, how's everything going? Obviously, he's the host of Timcast IRL. You know, watching people like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel break down live on television, it's been pleasurable. What's been your favorite moment since the victory of Donald Trump?
Oh, wow. They're already protesting. The corporate press and many of these leftist liberal outlets are calling this America's Judgment Day. We've elected fascism. And I love what you're mentioning about these late night hosts acting like everyone's suffering. Oh, the poor, the working class. The poor and the working class voted for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris actually won the wealthy, and the working class voted for Donald Trump. Minorities voted for Donald Trump. The popular mandate is with Donald Trump. And I was shocked to find this morning, and I'm very proud, my Democrat neighborhood in Chicago voted for Donald Trump, and that surprised me. The Chicago Sun-Times showed the map. It's gradually flipped from blue to deep red. I shouldn't say deep red, but just all red. And, you know, I don't know if that's my influence, but I do think it shows where my values come from. The people I grew up with were working class people in a blue city that were tired of Democrat failure, and now they're voting for Donald Trump.
I mean, Tim, that is the story of the election. Here are some stats for you that are amazing. New Jersey, Trump lost by 16 in 2020. He lost by 5 in 2024. It's an 11-point pickup for Trump in New Jersey. He lost California by 29 in 2020. He lost by 17 in 2024. That's a 12-point pickup in California. He lost by 23 in 2020 in New York. He lost by 12 in 2024. That is an 11-point pickup in New York. In Illinois, the state you're talking about, Trump lost by 17 in 2020. He lost by 8 in 2024, a 9-point pickup for Donald Trump. The fact of the matter is, you know, some of this is the magic of Donald Trump. Obviously, he's a unique figure. He's the most important figure of the 21st century in the United States and internationally. He just is. Whether you like it or not, that's the reality of the situation. Also, the Democrats are so terrible at this. I mean, so truly terrible. So you're watching the recriminations break out. Lots of screaming and yelling. And we get to stand on the side and watch, you know, the clowns hit each other with cakes and everything. And it's really fun. But do you think the Democratic Party has a path back? What does that path look like?
I don't know. Tulsi Gabbard left, right? I supported Tulsi Gabbard in 2019 and 2020. I thought Donald Trump should have brought her on back then. And I'm fairly moderate. RFK Jr. Joining Trump. This made an easy path for me to convince all of my anti-Trump or never Trumper friends and family, don't vote for Donald Trump, vote for RFK Jr. and vote for Tulsi Gabbard, because if you vote for Kamala, you're getting Dick and Liz Cheney. That made it relatively easy. Now what we're seeing with all these talk shows and all these pundits, they're saying it was white women who betrayed us. I can't remember who said it. Black women were trying to save, I think it was Sunny Hostin, black women were trying to save the country. It's showing us that in only a few days afterwards, they're doubling and tripling down on rhetoric and ideas that do not work. And in fact, I got to say this, one of my favorite jokes that I saw on Twitter following the election was, women buy milk and eggs more than they get abortions. Yet they're still continually doubling down on these failed ideas that people do not like. I hate to say it, I'd love to see a Democratic Party that moderates and realizes where they were wrong. A lot of Democrats are trying. Bernie Sanders is trying. They are insulting and attacking Bernie Sanders because he said Democrats have abandoned the white working class and now the Latino working class and the black working class. And the response from, I think it was Jen Rubin, was no, the problem is white men blaming others. They refuse to accept the failure and the direction they've gone has lost in this election. So, hey, you know what I think? If this path continues over the next 4 years, if J.D. Vance, and I believe he probably will end up the next nominee, at least for now, I think he has a chance at winning Illinois. I think he's a fantastic VP already. He was a fantastic candidate. And with Illinois within 8 points of a Republican victory, I think J.D. Vance would close the gap unless Democrats figure out they've gone insane and try and solve that problem.
Tim, it is a massive problem for them. It's also a massive problem because the truth is that if you look at JD or if you look at Trump's economic agenda, their economic agenda is not a sort of like gigantically pro-free market agenda. So, for example, both JD and Trump have endorsed the entitlement state. Like they've not really talked about paring back the entitlement state in any serious way. They might talk about some mean-tested welfare programs. That's about it. Right? Both JD and Trump have talked about subsidies to particular parts of the country. Right? So they're sort of occupying the middle space on the economic spectrum. It's not just that they occupy the right, where they're very pro-entrepreneurship. They're also occupying the middle space where they're not anti-redistributionism to a certain extent. And so that's making it very awkward for Democrats to even sort of move into that space. When you have a party that is including, as you mentioned, people like Elon Musk on the one hand, uber capitalist, obviously, uber free market guy. And then on the other hand, you have people like you or Batya Ungar Sargon, people who are sort of more, interventionist, economically speaking. That's a pretty broad coalition.
Yeah, what I find truly fascinating as well, Democrats seem to be addicted to our only political attacks are everything they do is wrong. And my favorite line right now, with Donald Trump saying we're going to have deportations. Let's think about what mass deportations is saying. There are people who entered the country illegally. We're going to give them a free ride home. They say that's fascism. They say that's rounding people up like Hitler in concentration camps. And I'm sitting here being like, a free ride back to their home because they came here illegally sounds like the nicest thing we can do in solving this problem. But instead of saying, you know what, Donald Trump has a point, we can't sustain mass unchecked illegal immigration, and trying to offer an alternative, which they like an actual argument, which they don't have, they just say Trump's Hitler. Well, at a certain point, people say, yeah, that means nothing to me. Calling me racist means nothing. Calling me misogynist means nothing. We're looking at now, I think this is the third presidential election with Trump, where he said, hey, I have a solution to this problem you're concerned about. And the Democrats have just said, that means you're Hitler. At a certain point, people say, I recognize Trump is right about this problem. You've offered me nothing. He's made me an offer. I guess I have to go with Trump.
Well, that's Tim Pool. You can go check him out over on Twitter at Timcast and check out his show, of course, Timcast IRL. Tim, really appreciate the time. And man, it's going to be fun going forward to see what happens next.
Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. So meanwhile, as we say, the recriminations among the Democrats, they've broken out, and I'm here for all of them. The Harris campaign is now going after anyone who criticizes them. So according to, I believe this is New York Magazine, Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign sharply criticized Philadelphia Democratic Party Chairman Bob Brady after he laid blame with them for a lower than expected turnout in the city. Brendan McPhillips, senior advisor to the Harris campaign in Pennsylvania, said in their statement that the team, quote, knocked more than 2 million doors in the weekend leading up to Election Day, which is 2 million more doors than Bob Brady's organization can claim to have knocked on. So they're yelling at each other. Meanwhile, Team Harris is blaming Joe Biden. They're saying that they're angry that Joe Biden refused to leave earlier. One Harris aide said, quote, we ran the best campaign we could considering Joe Biden was president. Joe Biden is the singular reason Kamala Harris and Democrats lost tonight. Another Harris aide said it was clear Biden should have made a graceful exit much sooner, allowing Democrats to hold a primary they believed Harris would have won. So resounding was the thumping that some of the party's next generation leaders were signaling the need for a deep autopsy of the party's failures to stop the red wave. Meanwhile, David Plouffe was leading that particular campaign. He then, by the way, actually went off of X. He just left Twitter entirely after this comment. Quote, it was a privilege to spend the last 100 days with Kamala Harris and the amazing staff led by Jen O'Malley Dillon, who left it all on the field for their country. We dug out of a deep hole, but not enough. A devastating loss. Thanks for being in the arena, all of you. So it's that line, we dug out of a deep hole, but not enough. So that is Plouffe saying, we did our best to shun the Biden people, and it's their fault we lost. And everybody in Team Biden is like, what the F, dude? We left, and you continued to run this thing into the ground. You know, Alex Thompson of Politico, he points out, or of Axios rather, he points out that the Democrats are blaming Joe Biden as well. You want to know why Joe Biden was happy earlier this day in the Rose Garden? Because he's so happy she lost. He's so happy because it means that all the people who hated him and who dumped him over, they are losers. And according to Joe Biden, he beat Trump, so he's a winner, and they're losers. That's why he's happy. Here's Alex Thompson having Team Harris blame Team Biden.
What you're saying, Karen, is part of the reason why a lot of Democrats are very angry at Joe Biden tonight. Because they feel that the decision to run again when he was 80 years old was very reckless and a very risky decision, a risky gamble that he lost. And then he basically swapped out, and he chose Kamala Harris, not just in 2020, but then he chose her, basically gave her a $100 million head start when he endorsed her and gave her his campaign. Yeah. And, in some ways, while a lot of people want to say, well, Kamala was bad in an interview, and I just mentioned it before, it was bad in an interview with The View. She was bad in an interview with 60 Minutes. There are a lot of Democrats that are actually much more angry at Joe Biden tonight.
Yeah, I think I'd just say, yes, I was expecting that because some felt like if he'd have dropped out sooner and she would have ascended as the nominee, she would have also had more time.
So again, they're just blaming Biden for her losing, but they could have left him in. He could have lost. They could have gone with the next one. Simone Sanders taking the other side of that argument. So she is a former Kamala Harris staffer. And she's like, well, they did force Joe Biden out, I noticed.
And again, the people that said Joe Biden was the problem. Where's my camera?
He was not the solution. He was not the solution.
I will just note that it is probably not the best idea that Democrats orchestrated a very public stab fest, a proverbial stabbing in the front of the sitting president of the United States of America, and then didn't use him in his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Okay, she ain't wrong either. So it's fun to watch them go at each other. Now, the real internecine warfare begins. Why exactly did they lose? Well, the truth is, it's pretty obvious why they lost, and you can tell because of how Donald Trump ran. Donald Trump ran as a policy moderate who wasn't a nut job when it came to things like are boys girls or not. A whole article in the New York Times today called How Trump Won, How Harris Lost. And one of the things that they point out is that there was an ad that the Trump campaign tried out, and that turned out to be the most successful ad of the campaign. And it was specifically about the trans issue. According to this piece from the New York Times, about a week after the September debate, Trump started spending heavily on a television ad that hammered Harris for her position on a seemingly obscure topic, the use of taxpayer funds to fund surgeries for transgender inmates. Harris said in that 2019 clip used in the ad, quote, every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access. It was a big bet. Trump was leading on the two most salient issues in the race, the economy and immigration, yet here he was intentionally changing the subject. But the ad, with its vivid tagline, Kamala is for they, them, President Trump is for you, broke through in Mr. Trump's testing to an extent that stunned some of his aides. So they poured more money into the ads, running them during football games. That prompted Charlemagne the God, host of the Breakfast Club, to express exasperation. His on-air complaints then gave the Trump team fodder for more commercials. The Charlemagne ad ranked as one of the Trump team's most effective 30-second spots. It shifted the race 2.7 percentage points in Trump's favor after viewers watched it. So again, Trump just ran against the social leftism of a disconnected elite class. All they would have to do is jettison that, and maybe they're competitive again, but they don't know which direction to go. So Matt Iglesias, who's been a guest on the Sunday Special before, he's sort of a more old line liberal, I would say. He put out what he thought was the vision for common sense Democrats. Let me read you what he says Democrats should do. It's 9 points. You will notice something about them. 1, economic self-interest for the working class includes robust economic growth. 2, climate change is a reality to manage, not a hard limit to obey. 3, the government should prioritize the interests of normal people over those of people who engage in antisocial conduct. 4, we should in fact judge people by the content of their character rather than by the color of their skin. 5, while race is a social construct, biological sex is not. 6, academic and nonprofit staffers do not occupy a unique position of virtue relative to private sector workers. 7, politeness is a virtue, but obsessive language policing alienates normal people and degrades the quality of thinking. 8, we're equal in the eyes of God, but the American government can and should prioritize the interests of American citizens. 9, public services must be run in the interests of their users, not their providers. Now, if you nodded every one of those, it's because they're all conservative principles. So what Matt Iglesias is saying is, if you wish to not lose like Democrats, you might want to run like Republicans. That happens to be correct. And there are some in the Democratic Party who are saying just that. Charlemagne the God, for one, he says, well, maybe that Democrats are just out of touch. Maybe they need to get back in touch.
Once again, don't just chalk it up to racism, sexism. Okay, I believe those things play a role, but at the end of the day, it's the economy, stupid. And Democrats might just be really out of touch with what everyday Americans are feeling.
That is correct. Meanwhile, for example, New York Democrat Richie Torres, he is saying that the far left helped make Donald Trump happen. He said, on X, quote, Donald Trump has no greater friend than the far left, which has managed to alienate historic numbers of Latinos, blacks, Asians, and Jews from the Democratic Party with absurdities like defund the police or from the river to the sea or Latin X. There's more to lose than there is to gain politically from pandering to a far left that is more representative of Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok than it is of the real world. The working class is not buying the ivory-towered nonsense the far left is selling. Richie Torres happens to be correct. Okay, but then from the left, you have Bernie Sanders from the top rope saying that they need to appeal to the pro-Gaza crowd. Quote, it should come as no surprise that the Democratic Party, which has abandoned working class people, would find that the working class has abandoned them. First, it was the white working class. Now, it is Latino and black workers as well. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. Today, while the rich are doing phenomenally well, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. They have more income and wealth inequality than ever before. But then, he can't stop himself. He can't stop himself, and he has to go to the far left again. So if he just stuck to the kind of two Americas, John Edwards, we need more economic redistributionism, I don't think that would work. That's a more plausible argument than the social leftism, but then he can't stop himself. Quote, today, despite strong opposition from a majority of Americans, we continue to spend billions funding the extremist Netanyahu government's all-out war against the Palestinian people. Right? That is his sop to a bunch of young Gaza protesters. If Bernie Sanders had been the actual candidate, he would have gotten skunked by Donald Trump. Skunked by him. Which is precisely why the Democratic Party in 2020 stopped him from being the nominee. Bernie Sanders is a befuddled old socialist. Most old socialists end up on the government dime. Very few of them end up with a lake house and millions of worshipful followers. But it's going to be fun to watch the radical and the normie wings of the Democratic Party bang it out against one another. That'll be really, really fun. The sort of traditional radicals, however, they have their solution. And their solution is obvious. You blame the people. So Media Matters is Angelo Carasone. Media Matters, the worst organization in America, bar none. Terrible organization. Their entire goal is to just take shows like this one off the air because they disagree. Angelo Carasone, he says that the Trump voters don't believe in democracy, which is weird since they represent 51% of the American public at a minimum.
But at its core, this is a discussion about democracy. I'm not so blinded to think that they all are deeply pro-democracy. Many of them don't believe in democracy as a principle, and they want something more autocratic and authoritarian. But there's another part, a much larger part, that actually believe that a vote for Donald Trump is a vote for democracy because they have validated and internalized the idea that there's an anti-democratic secret cabal that is actually preventing their desires and exercise of democratic power from being implemented and put in place, and that only Trump can restore their power.
I mean, they're right about that. There is an anti-democratic secret cabal. It's called the administrative state, and it's the unelected legacy media. That would be the machine that he's talking about right there. W. Kamau Bell over at CNN, he's saying the same thing, that voters just ran toward racism and misogyny. Again, it's going to be, this is MSNBC rather, it's going to be fun to watch all of these forces battle one another for supremacy in the failing Democratic Party.
Donald Trump has been impeached twice. He was indicted 4 times, convicted on 34 felony counts. He's been found liable of sexual abuse. His campaign spewed a lot of racism, misogyny, xenophobia, but voters seem to overlook all of that.
Respectfully, I don't think voters overlooked it. I think voters ran towards it. I think voters loved it. I think we have found out after much want for the contrary, we live in a right-wing country. This is what it is.
Hey, well, guys, I hope you have fun storming the castle with your motley crew of radical racialists and radical socialists. Really enjoy yourself. All right, folks, in just a moment, we're going to be talking about the cases against Donald Trump being dropped and left losing their minds over that. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.